Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil's Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace. Thank you guys for joining me. Happy Friday, I hope you guys are doing well. We are here live on Friday, August 16th, doing astrology readings for this full moon in Aquarius that's coming in hot. We're gonna be having this in the next couple days. Do me a favor, if you have not already, subscribe to my channel, click the bell button below, subscribe so that way you guys can see my other videos throughout the week. I'm here Tuesday, Thursday, Friday evenings, and Sundays, trying to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. I'm a Western astrologer. I practice Western astrology. I utilize evolutionary astrology as well as tarot and the Sabian symbols to make my predictions. I'm glad to be here. How are you guys doing? Mercury retrograde's in full effect, guys. So things have been kind of weird. Obviously, I saw some comments in the chat. They went missing, so I apologize. I'll let you guys know who I have. Just a reminder, we are live on Friday. So if you see me on Saturday, please don't send any payments for a reading. I'm no longer here. I will refund you, don't worry. And we will be back next Friday doing tarot because we alternate every other week. And a big shout out to everybody in the chat. I'm going to say hello to everybody in a second, but also to all of the new subscribers and the members that support me as a full-time content creator. You guys are the best. If you like my content, you want to donate or become a member, I appreciate it. You can do that by getting a reading. So we're going to be doing astrology readings. You guys can ask any one question you want, either pertaining to your natal chart or transits, or if you want to know what this crazy full moon in Aquarius means for you, let me know. To get a reading, you can scan the QR code right here. It'll take you over to my PayPal where you can make your donation. We are doing donations of $55 US for your one question. Please, please, please put in your info. I need to know at least your first name or your alias. I need to know your time, exact time, date, year, location, city, state, and country. You can put that in the memo box and let me know what your question is, and I'm happy to help. I want to say hello to everybody who's here. So it looks like we've got Stephanie, Jessica, David, Sonia, Blue's here. What's up, Blue? What is that? No one. Carla's new. What's up, Carla? Send me your info. I saw you were making some questions up on the chat about how to do this. Dorothy's here. Let your light shine. Deanna's here. What's up, guys? The whole regular crew is here. It's nice to see everybody on Friday. What's up, Jennifer, Scorpion Goddess? Somebody says, if I had a live question 3 years ago, will it be on your channel? Yep, you just gotta go find it. What's up, Patrick? We also take super chat. You guys can also find the link in the comment section. Things get a little crazy when we do astrology readings because we have a ton of people. Sometimes we have 50, 60 people here at any given time. So if you're here just to hang out and watch, welcome, grab a drink and a snack. We're going to hang out and talk astrology today, and if you're somebody who wants to get a reading, get in the queue. We're going to leave it open for a little bit because we have a laundry list of people who are already here. So I do have a couple notes really quick. So Pam, I need to know what city you were born in Thailand, I think, if you could send that in the chat. Carla, I think we are either asking for your info or we need your info. So if you can send that info in the chat so I can put that in. Along with your question, that would be super helpful so I can get your stuff up. But let me let you guys know how this works. So I'm going to take the readings in the order that they were received. We take level 3 members first, so that's a benefit of being a member. You don't have to wait for everybody else's reading. We will take the level 3 people each week first. So if you're a level 3 member and you're getting a reading today, whether you're cashing in or if you are wanting to get a reading and you're paying for a reading, we always take you as a part of the first group. Then we're going to move on to the queue of everybody who's made a donation to get a reading. You'll hear me call everybody's names out right now to let you know who I have. Sometimes throughout the readings, people are going to send messages in the chat and go, did you get me? Did you get me? Don't worry, you'll hear me call your name. I'll do an updated list in just a little bit. At some point, I take a break and input all of the new charts because I'm doing this as we go. So I appreciate your patience, and you guys can always come back to this as well. So if you know that you want to get a reading but you don't want to hang around for like 2.5 hours, you can come back to this. Once the video is live, you'll be able to go back and see your question and my answer, as well as you can come back in the future and you can leave me comments on this and let me know how it plays out. It's a good idea to save the time on the video so that way you can go back and know exactly where your reading is, so that way you're not kind of scanning for it. Just a helpful tip, if you scan ahead in the video, you will see your name come up on the chart. So that'll help you kind of find it, okay? All right, what's up, Thea? Nestor, Lena, how's everybody doing? All right, so let's start first with all of my victims this evening. So if you're a level 3 member, like Julene, I've got Jessica, Stephanie, Marsha, and Let Your Light Shine. Let Your Light Shine, can you send me your first name so I can make sure I have the right chart? That may be the name, I'm not sure if that's how I saved it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So those are the level 3 people. For everybody else who has donated to get into the queue, I've got Jennifer, Danielle, Marie, Amber, Brandy, Pam, Carla, Curtis. I got you, Blue, but I think you're under a different name, but I've got you. Okay, so Blue, what's your first name again? I think I can't remember, but I know I have it. Just remind me. If you're level 3, it is included in your membership. So that's what's cool, is that you get if you're a member monthly, you're gonna get a reading once a month, and you can choose if you want tarot or astrology. And if you join today, we'll put you on the level 3 if you get in. Okay, it's Brandy. Gotcha. I got you. No worries. Amber, Let Your Light Shine. Amber. All right, let me just double check this. And Amber, can you give me your date of birth again? What's up, Queen of Light Bulbs? 6/26/82. Thank you. I see you right there. Amber A. All right, so I'll make sure I get you. Queen of Light Bulbs, I'll add you to my list. Cool. All right, I got you. Okay, so once again, if you guys are asking if I got your name, if you heard your name, I have you, and I'll update you as you go. I'll call roll call, so I'll give you guys a heads up and let you know a couple names in advance, so that way you know that your reading is kind of coming up, and I appreciate your patience. And do me a favor, if you can see this, give me a thumbs up, like the stream. It lets other people know that we are here and that we are live. All right, so we are going to start first with J and J. They did not want their names being used, but I did use your first initials. So I've got J, who's June 4th, 65 in Phoenix, Arizona at 5:44 a.m. And then the other person who is March 26, 1970, 11:18 p.m. So we're doing a synastry for you, and it's always fun to read for another astrologer, so thank you. You're talking to me about some interesting interactions that you've had with another person. You guys keep having conversations regarding why you guys keep coming back together, having more in-depth, meaningful conversations, and it's been a crazy year, and you've had a lot going on in regards to your home and also your income. So basically, you've been looking at the transits between the two of you guys, and you're wondering, you know, what's going to happen. All right. So either way, thanks for listening and reaching out. We still love each other, but I don't know. I feel like I'm being thrown off a building in my life right now. If we're meant to come together, fine. If not, I gotta move. I hope that makes sense. All right. So hopefully I can shine a light on your guys' synastry and talk a little bit about what's going on between the two of you. You are the inner wheel with the Gemini sun, and they are the outer wheel with the Aries sun. Okay. All right. So a little bit about the synastry between the two of you guys. I always look at where planets come into conjunction with each other, because that's the first thing I look at. And then I want to see how your Mars and your Venuses, your suns, your moons, all that stuff kind of interacts with one another. So right off the bat, the first thing I'm taking a look at is the Saturn North Node connection and the Uranus South Node connection. Obviously, that's going to represent something where there is some kind of, you could say, connection in the past, whether this is somebody who's familiar from a past life or somebody who keeps kind of coming back around in this life. And Uranus for you represents something that is connected to the bigger purpose of life. So it could mean that there's this feeling of friendship, there's this connection, they keep coming in when you're seeking direction, and it sounds like that's something that you're kind of going through. Obviously, having your suns sextile one another is nice. You guys also have a North Node Saturn connection, so that tells me that there is this lesson in the relationship where there is some sense of interaction with this person where you feel like it helps you activate your Saturn. So there is a sense of kind of tapping into your own authority, a sense of direction, having better boundaries. Maybe the really deep emotional connection comes from the North Node Saturn aspect, that there is a sense of feeling really kind of like in alignment with this person. Obviously, Saturn does represent your 10th house as well as your 8th house and your 9th house. So there can be some kind of lessons revolving around, deep emotional connections and something that wakes you up and makes you realize what it is that you do want. A lot of the Aries in his chart, the Sun, Mercury, Venus, it's all in a sextile to all of your Gemini placements. So they're seeing each other. You guys also have a Mars moon square. So there can be this feeling with the Mars in the 12th house that's like, where is this going? Are we spinning our wheels? Like, what is the purpose of us being together? And obviously all of your Gemini placements square his north and south node. And you guys also have nodal squares, which I don't think is a bad thing. I kind of like planets that square the nodes because it teaches you how to kind of evolve and integrate. Now, when I split the chart the other way and flip it around and put his astrology on here, so Scorpio rising, Scorpio moon, sun in Aries, look at this loaded 7th house that you have with him. Okay. So that tells me that you are quite the embodiment of like the kind of person that he attracts. Now, I use Placidus housing system. I do not use whole sign. I feel like Placidus is more accurate personally. So some astrologers would look at this and go, well, it's a lot of like 8th house overlay. Maybe when it comes to like opening the mind and transforming communication, but anytime somebody's got a ton of planets in the 7th house, especially like the sun, which could literally represent the type of, personality that you're going to kind of bring in. The North Node, which talks about relationship growth and development, although the North Node is sometimes something that we don't see coming, and it does represent something that's like unusual or unobtainable at times. And you've got Jupiter and Venus, the two benefics in the 7th house, and his 7th house is ruled by Venus. I like that. All of this obviously sextiles into his Aries, which is between the 4th and the 5th house. And I got to tell you, both of you guys are in really big like turning points right now. Like for him, as a Scorpio rising, Uranus is done kind of dealing with his natal Mars and Saturn. Like he's gone through some of his, changes with work or with his health or changes with relationships in recent years. And over the next year and a half, Uranus is going to be dancing on his descendant. So it's going to represent, there is some kind of Uranian, unexpected, unconventional, sudden shift and change when it comes to relationships. And his descendant's at 29, so it's a critical degree. So that tells me that there is some kind of lesson to be learned about relationships. I saw that you referenced like the eclipses that were happening in the spring. That was very close to his Venus. And then there was also a retrograde over his Venus. So that's a very significant transit that happened because it was about kind of the direction of where he's going with his future, his goals with relationships and other people. And it was an opportunity. It was like opening the door to say like, okay, is there some kind of connection here? So for me, that story is not finished yet. That's not really going to be finished until you see like the full moon that's going to be happening in Aries this fall. It will not be an eclipse. It will actually be a Pisces eclipse instead. So it'll be just after that. And I also think that, Saturn has yet to go over his Venus, and that's going to be happening in a couple of years' time where there could be a much more serious commitment within a relationship. Next spring, retrogrades through his 5th house. I think it is mid-September 2024 eclipse that's going to be in Pisces. Technically in his 4th, but you're going to hear for Scorpio risings that the eclipse is very much going to be about, some kind of significant shift in regards to love and relationships. It just looks like he's having to kind of get the hang of Uranus getting ready to go into his 7th house. And when that happens, And it's fully in Gemini. It'll be sextiling Saturn, which is going to be connected to his sun and his Chiron. So that is going to represent, you know, sudden dramatic changes in relationships, the impact that this is going to have on his home and his living situation, like that kind of stuff. I also kind of feel like, you know, at 29 degrees, it does represent drama. It represents, you know, romance, boyfriends, girlfriends, that kind of stuff. But your guys' astrology has some very strong aspects in both of the charts revolving around the IC and the midheaven. All right. So if you look at your Saturn, you know, right in conjunction to the 4th house, it looks like part of the relationship lesson is how do we build a private life? How do we create home? How do we do domestic stuff? Where are we living? How are we feeling about this? And all of your Virgo sits conjunct his midheaven, which means it has a pretty significant dramatic effect in reorganizing the direction with his career, transformation of status, and also communication. So if we flip this back around again, when we were looking at it this way, his North Node conjuncture Saturn. So it's activating this sense of you being like, I have stuff to do. You're either with it or you're not with it. What are we doing? Right? You have to see a pretty strong transit, either involving your natal Jupiter or in your 7th house, or involving transit Jupiter, for you to be able to see some kind of relationship shift, right? So you don't need me to tell you that, like, you're a mega 12th houser. There is a sense of maybe you having some internal knowledge or intuition or feeling or visions about relationships. And when you have your 7th house ruler in the 12th, it means that you have a tendency to deal with partners where there's unfinished business, and you may dream about them, or, you know, you may have a feeling they're going to come back around at some point, and so on and so forth. You are Mercury, they are Jupiter. So right now, you know, Jupiter has been transiting over your Mercury and your Jupiter. It's even when it retrogrades, I don't think it's going to quite go back, but it has activated that, which means that there is this sense of being like, okay, what do we need to talk about? What do we need to get clarity on? Like, where are we going? Not easy for you, because you also happen to have Jupiter in a square to Saturn. So the positive thing is, let me put the transits now. The positive thing is you're kind of playing with home field advantage. You may not feel like it, but Saturn in Pisces, you were born with that. Jupiter in Gemini, you were born with that. That basically means that you know that your life is a series of expansion at times and contraction at times. And maybe you have felt like you have had to make decisions about, do I choose my career or do I choose relationships? And trying to kind of balance those two equally. Notice how this also opposes all of your Virgo in the 4th house. So this is about like kind of getting out of the past, making significant change to kind of evolve out of whatever you have dealt with growing up, your home life, your living situation. And both Jupiter and Mercury are kind of the focal points of these particular squares. It's wide, but by sign it's there. So that tells me that there needs to be like a real opportunity to sit down and communicate clearly about, okay, where are we going, right? This is what I have got going on work-wise. These are my responsibilities. This is what I have kind of going on, you know, home-wise. This is my past. This is what I've dealt with. And the Jupiter, Mercury, Sun is, you know, can we come together and find some common ground? And if we cannot, then like, I gotta go. And you've probably dealt with several relationships like this, just kind of looking at your chart. The good news is that, you know, Uranus going into Gemini, Pluto going into Aquarius, you know, Saturn going into Aries. These are all good transits for him in the next year, where there's going to be some pretty dramatic changes in his home life and also his relationships. So I feel like he is on the path of being able to kind of get to a place where he can do that. But I think about this year for you where you're going to be kind of locked into the Saturn-Jupiter square. So right now there is lots of opportunity to potentially kind of get on with someone, because you have got Jupiter and Mars coming into conjunction in your 1st house. This basically means you have a lot of opportunity. You know, I will tell you, if you're into astrology, I would go and start looking at end of November into December. I'm sure many of you guys who watch my work, you know that I'll be like, this is happening now, but this is going to happen down the road. So I think about the latter part of this year, when you're going to have a pretty significant Mercury retrograde in your 7th. And Mercury is your chart ruler. And Mercury at the end of November will turn retrograde in Sag, which means you are going to either be reconnecting, rethinking, or changing direction with what's going on in your 7th house, okay? Communications, you could decide, you know what, I'm good here, I'm out. It could be that you've thought about it and now you want to merge in some way. We've got an interesting mutual reception between Jupiter and Mercury, which means basically you guys are saying the same thing. The opposition means, yeah, we do want to be together. We do want to find a way, but something's getting in the way. What's getting in the way is Saturn. And Saturn means that there needs to be a change of status, or there needs to be, okay, I'm able to balance my job and I need to be dedicated to work right now. And I, can have a relationship, but this is kind of coming first. So knowing that several months down the road this is going to happen, I would advise you when it comes to talking to him now about being like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I want, this is the direction I see my life going in. Do you want to do this with me? Right? And how ironic when Uranus goes into his 7th house Taurus, all of a sudden there could be a relationship that could start up with an astrologer, right? That's what happened. My husband's Scorpio rising. As soon as Uranus went into his 7th house, I showed up. So I kind of think, like, looking at your chart, that there will be, every 7 years, there is a change. With this mutable square, girl, work changes, home changes, you change something about your relationship. And the direction where your life is going right now with Jupiter on the ascendant and eventually coming into conjunction with Venus means you have a really good shot at being able to have a relationship. The question is he willing to kind of evolve? Is he ready for change? Because it's going to require a lot of change. I would assume, looking at your chart with the retrograde going on now from your 4th to your 3rd house, there has been a lot of like reworking and rethinking. Well, where do I want to live? What does feel like home? And you're getting pulled in all different directions because of the square right now. The focal point of the square is Jupiter and Mars, which basically means for you, you have to be willing to say, these are my goals, right? This is what I want to achieve in all regards, home, relationships, career. If somebody fits into that with Jupiter on your ascendant, they'll say, okay, I want to do that with you. But I have a really strong feeling that there is still a lot that's going to get worked out here at the end of the year, right? So the fact that you guys keep coming, around each other and like reconnecting and revolving around each other does tell me that you're kind of dancing around having these conversations. Even if you've been talking about stuff at length, there's been a lot of dancing around. Now, if you look at his chart in the future, something else that's worth mentioning is that in the spring of 2025, there will be a Venus retrograde. And for a lot of Scorpio rising charts, 7th house ruler going retrograde back into the 5th house whole sign, it's going to conjunct Neptune, it's going to conjunct Saturn, and then we're also going to be seeing eclipses. So that tells me that really that's the time, like right when you're getting into March, April, when all of this stuff is going on, that is, go time. And you will know whether or not this is something that could really evolve into a more serious relationship. Remember, all of this for you is going to be in your 10th household sign. So it is about a change of your status. You are now finally getting ready to start breaking away from the Saturn square to Jupiter. So it does make me feel like that the career stuff can get situated in a way where you're like, okay, now I can do more relationship stuff, and then things can evolve. I would also watch what happens with the Mars retrograde for him because he's ruled by Mars. So it looks like most of the Mars retrograde is going to take place in his 8th house. And this really represents from the whole sign 9 to the 8th, changes in direction when it comes to vulnerability and intimacy. This Mars retrograde is also going to trine Saturn. So it does mean that it's about kind of opening up, merging with another person, and the possibility of being able to have like more togetherness, So I don't think it's a bad match. I just think that you have your work cut out for you where you're extremely work focused. And if a person kind of comes into your life right now, it's like, okay, if we're going to do this, then, these are the things that I'm working on, and you either need to get with it or you're fitting into this, or I got to go. Look at the full moon in November in Taurus. That's going to be very telling in his 7th house later this year. And something else that I like about the synastry is just, all the trines to your moon. It means you guys can emotionally kind of like resonate with each other. There's also, you know, a Saturn trine moon here. So the fact that you guys have trines to your guys' moons, I think is really helpful, because that means that you're going to be on the same page. But at the end of the day, you know, like I said, you have had several of these situations like this before, and you're never going to be short of partners with Jupiter and Mercury and the sun in the 12th house. It's just kind of like, sometimes you may feel like you're sitting around waiting for that other person to like figure it out and have an aha moment and then come looking for you. And you're like, I just know at some point, you know, they're going to come back. I also really like your guys' North Node Saturn Juno connection. I think that that's talking about growth and like learning how to kind of grow into, you know, the relationship that can be the most fulfilling for one another. But it's about getting out of the past, right? With the South Node Uranus aspect. So keep me updated. I'm curious to hear what happens closer to this retrograde, you know, November, December, because I think that's going to be the real turning point. And because of the squares to your Saturn, that's going to be the time where maybe you have given it that long and you have felt it out, for you to kind of be like, okay, I know or I don't know whether or not this is going to be something that's going to go the distance, but definitely worth giving it a shot, I think. You know, it's just really important that you're keeping in mind that he's going to have to go through a lot of change to facilitate a relationship next year. Anyway, I hope that's helpful for you. Let me know. I know we've got some new people here. What's up, Rom Rom? Hey, Danielle. Hey, Salty Mama. Let me know. I'm always happy to do readings for you guys. All right, so let me pull up the next chart. There we go. Okay. So we have Jessica, and you know, Jessica, I did not see your question because the chat got rid of it. So let me know what your question is. And then we've got Stephanie and we've got Marsha. And you know what? Marsha sent me an email. So let me pull that up so I can see that really quick. Because I want to make sure I get it. Where was that? There we go. We got a number of people in the queue. There's like at least a dozen people right now. So we're probably going to leave it open for another couple minutes and then we'll shut it down. Thanks, Jessica. Sorry about that. All right, so we've got another Scorpio rising here. What's coming towards me? Wait, hello. What's coming towards me in love? Letting recent situation go. I'm feeling Saturn choked me out. My daughter sprained her ankle last night. I saw your comment. I'm sorry to hear that. Bummer. Okay, so in terms of love, let's see, what year are you in right now? So you're in a Virgo year. Okay. And your 7th house Lord, look at Uranus dancing on your 7th house. So I remember saying to you, I was like, girl, when Uranus shows up there's going to be some kind of change. It's like, oh, something comes in, something goes out. Especially being in a Gemini degree, it could be more than one person that you're meeting. In just general terms, you know, in your chart, Placidus, Uranus rules your 3rd house. So it can be like an off and on thing with somebody who's like a neighbor or in the neighborhood. This could also be somebody that you connect to in a short distance trip or like on an online app, something like that. But with relationships, we got to see something kind of going on with Venus. And so the next week or so is not going to feel so great. I think for a lot of people, as much as I hate to say that, because Venus is coming into an opposition with Saturn. So you have to remember that Saturn creates a boundary. Venus wants love and affection. They're separate from each other. And Venus is in a sign that deals with hard work and kind of catering and serving and cleaning up. And it's a changeable sign because it's mutable. Simultaneously, it's squaring Jupiter. So what it's bringing up for you is that you're kind of like, I want something that's going to be more public or something that's more committed, or, you know, I'm really wanting to partner with somebody, but I'm considering other options because Jupiter can be more than one. Jupiter is also your traditional whole sign 5th house Lord, Pisces. So that's another indication that it's kind of trying to push you for something with somebody who communicates more, or something that's more romantic, or something that can be with somebody who can be more sensitive or kind of just more involved. Generally, and I think I've said this to you before, like, you know, when Jupiter goes through your 7th house, you're not really in a shortage of relationship opportunities. But with Jupiter hitting your moon here, that is also an indication that, you know, there can be a connection with another person. This can be somebody who, you know, could be a combination of Libra, it could be Scorpio, or it could be Gemini, because they have, or you have your moon at 20 degrees, which is a Scorpio degree. It's in Gemini and it's in the 7th house. So I would watch for those signs. That could be something that can kind of pop up. What's interesting is that this natally kind of in conjuncts and quincunxes your Venus, right? So it's almost like, okay, there is this kind of change or transformation in the way that I think about relationships or communicate with people, or maybe one thing is dying off and like another thing emerges. And it really is activating your Venus-Saturn, which is, you know, I need something that's strong and committed, and I need something that's going to last the test of time, or somebody who's more mature, somebody who wants to kind of like build together in some capacity. So there is something that's kind of getting rubbed the wrong way here. And it's encouraging you to kind of like keep an open mind when it comes to relationships, or kind of keep your options open in terms of like the people that you may potentially meet. That's kind of my interpretation. What you're wanting to see is a more harmonious aspect with Venus. And so even though Venus in Virgo can be challenging for some people, it's going through your 10th house for like the next couple of weeks. So you can meet people at work. You're going to see a Venus trine Uranus transit. So that's going to be kind of August 25th through, you know, the 28th. So there is opportunities to kind of meet and partner with people. And then we're going to see Venus go into Libra, where she, I think, is a little bit more comfortable. And I want to see something going on between Venus and Mars. So we're not going to see a trine for a little while, but we are going to see Venus start coming into a trine with Jupiter in your 7th. So right around mid-September, when we have this Pisces eclipse, that could bring something in for you around the 17th. Because this is a whole sign 5th house eclipse. So it can be a change in direction with your romantic life, anything revolving around dating. You know, 5th house eclipses can represent new creative projects, new kind of romantic playmates, you know, going on a date, something like that. And this is going to square Jupiter on your moon. So number one, super fertile transit with Jupiter on your moon, and eclipses connected to your 5th house. Number two, this is also saying that it's going to make you much more emotional and much more sensitive when it comes to relationships. And it can actually bring somebody in that can make you feel a little bit more optimistic about the future. Can I meet people? Yeah, you can meet people, but here's the thing, right? So in your chart, because Venus rules your 7th and it's retrograde and it's intercepted in the 2nd, it basically means that you can feel that there's blocks or limits when it comes to connecting with people, right? So yeah, joining a book club, starting a book club, maybe going to a local park and going for walks. It can also be good for, you know, you to do some combination of something that's like digital and in person. Because Aquarius, you know, Saturn rules your 3rd house, and Saturn is conjunct your Venus. And your Venus is at 21. So yeah, literary things that you read, stuff that can be about learning, you know, all of that stuff is, yeah, you're very, very capable of connecting and meeting with people in that way. The other option is you can wait until, let's see, you start seeing Venus coming into aspect with Uranus. So that could bring some stuff here, because Venus will sextile your Venus and it'll oppose Uranus. This is going to be right around mid-October. And you're going to see Venus trine Mars too. I missed that one. So yeah, Venus will trine Mars right around, yeah, mid-October, like the 19th through the 15th. That's going to be like another window where you're going to see some aspects between the two, right? So those are the times that I would watch for. And then obviously I keep referencing for Scorpio risings, the full moon in Taurus, but that's because that's when you see some big kind of like, you know, conclusion regarding around your 7th house, which is relationships. And this one is going to sextile Neptune, so it's kind of romantic. And it's also going to trine your Venus. And right when you have this full moon, that's going to be on the 15th of November, look at what's going on with Venus and Mars. They're conjunct each other. So that says that there could be a meeting, okay? So if it takes that long for you to meet somebody, there could be a meeting of some kind. And Venus and Mars are at a 4, so it means somewhere close to your home. It could mean also you meet someone at the bank because it's in the second house. You could end up kind of connecting and mingling with somebody who offers to come over and you know make you dinner or something like that, because this is kind of like a Cancerian energy. Next year, Uranus will go into your 7th house. So you're definitely going to see something where there is going to be a pretty dramatic shift. And I would just say keep an eye out for that, because that is going to bring a pretty significant change, and that's going to be happening what appears to be right around the end of May of 2025. And then you're going to have a new moon that's going to be conjunct Jupiter. This is after the retrograde, you know, stuff going on in Pisces, and all of this stuff is actually now coming into a sextile with Saturn. So that means that there's going to be some kind of growth in regards to relationships. It's just kind of leading up to that point. So I'm not going to say like, you know, keep things flexible, but like there's going to be something that's going to happen. So if you're not thrilled with who you meet up until like, let's say mid-November, there could be a shift right around that time, right? Hopefully that helps. All right. Let's see. Who else do I have here? All right, so that was Jessica. What's up, Stephanie? Hey, SR, no worries. I just saw you. Thank you for your generosity. I'm adding you to my list. I didn't know that PayPal was having issues. I apologize. All right, so Stephanie, let me see if I had your question. You may have gotten cut off, so I apologize because Mercury's doing his thing. I should be in the queue. Let me know if it's in there, please. I do not have your question, so can you send it to me again? I don't know why YouTube does that. It's so weird. And then for who's on deck, I've got after Stephanie, Marsha, Let Your Light Shine, and Queen of Light Bulbs. And we did call a final call, so if we missed you, we'll catch you guys back here next week. All right, cool. And let me pull up Marsha's question again. Let's see, Marsha. I'm sure you hear that all the time. Okay, thank you for the reading. I'm curious about chronic health condition, autoimmune. Is remission possible? Just generally speaking, what's coming around the corner? Okay, I can do that for you. All right, Stephanie, I'm just going to start taking a look at some of this stuff and then you can chime in. Well, what's going on? I feel like I'm on the verge of, or like depression. I feel unhappy. Money is not enough. I'm very unmotivated. I stopped working on my business. Okay, so for me, and I haven't even started talking about this yet. I'm going to start talking about this at the end of the month, but Pluto's retrograding back into Capricorn. So if there's anybody watching this who's got like 28, 29 degrees, Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, you're going to be feeling the last kind of like whiplash of this particular ingress. And this is pretty significant because it's going to be squaring your ascendant and squaring your descendant, okay? So there's definitely something to be said about that because Pluto brings heavy moods. It's traditionally associated with Scorpio, and it's about us recognizing this thing needs to change. So it's still in your 3rd house, all right? So let me kind of speed up a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. It's still in your 3rd house, but it's going to square your ascendant or your descendant. And Libra risings, they want to generally be pleasant. There is a sense of, wanting to feel or look put together, wanting to be balanced, feeling like you've, got support or partnership of some kind, clients or something. So when Pluto comes into this square, which it will kind of be in until the latter part of the year, it's trying to get you to make big changes and transformations when it comes to your state of mind. Difficult because Capricorn is intercepted in your chart. Look at the third house. It starts with Sag. The fourth house starts with Aquarius. So when planets are in Capricorn, you're kind of like, you kind of feel like you're driving blind, right? She said, my love life sucks and I've been single for a while. I don't have good friends. So my perspective is on this, Pluto going retrograde is about that shift when it comes to your mindset, when it comes to also money, and anything revolving around business, Capricorn. This is like a really good time if you want to get back on socials and promote your business. If you want to rework a website, right? If you're wanting to kind of create or strategize a way to kind of revamp things. While this is coming back into Capricorn, it's also opposing Mercury, which for a Libra rising chart is your whole sign 12th house. So there's this feeling of being like, what is the purpose? Like, you know, feeling very emotional about something that's going on, that it feels like it's a lot of psychological change that needs to happen. And for your Placidus chart, it represents friends. So there's this sense of being like, I don't really feel like I'm connected to friends. Like, what am I doing? So it makes sense that you're kind of going through that as well. Anyway, the other thing that I think is kind of happening in the background is that the South Node has been transiting your natal Jupiter. Okay, it looks like it's coming into conjunction with that pretty soon, like over like the next month. And for you, you know, Jupiter in the 12th, believe it or not, it does represent being protected. Like there is this sense of like your spirit team, if you believe in that, like having your back. This can bring unexpected blessings, support from relationships that you don't see coming, people that can kind of pop into your life out of nowhere. And Jupiter does rule your 5th house of anything revolving around romance, dating, creativity. Now for a whole sign Libra rising chart, this is your 6th house lord. So it can also feel like, okay, I just want to stay in bed. I'm exhausted. I don't want to do anything. And there can be moods that can happen until the South Node fully kind of moves into Virgo, which is going to be closer to the beginning of the year. But I think between those two transits, yeah, there's just a lot of clearing out. And the clearing out seems to be either relating to home or your mental state, or also, you know, kind of creating more so balance when it comes to your patterns or your habits behind the scenes. So that's going to be kind of clearing some things up. When do you see something significant happen in regards to relationships? Well, you'll see that when you have a really good Mars transit. Granted, Pluto squaring the ascendant and the descendant doesn't really help relating, but you do have, like, currently Venus has been in conjunction to Mars. Maybe there's been a lot of like reflecting on things in the past. Mercury's retrograde into your 10th house, so that's why you're kind of thinking, okay, I'm reevaluating, you know, do I go back to work? Do I make a change? Do I need to connect with people? I would say to any Libra rising right now with Mercury retrograde in your whole sign 11th, this is about coming out of a period of kind of feeling like you've been a hermit, reconnecting with people. Even if you feel like you're not hearing from people, reach out to the people you want to connect with and see if you can actually create better community. And also, you know, Virgo can be about collaborating with other people. So it can be people you've worked with in the past. It could also be that you're getting friends who want to come in and have services, and you're like, look, you know, I'll do these services at a percentage. Will you share this? Will you post this on your media? Show other people, you know, that you're getting work done by me. So there can be trades and stuff that you can exchange with Venus being in Virgo. I also think that you know, the retrograde was supposed to be getting you thinking about your long-term goals when it comes to your career, because it is retrograding into your 10th house. Your chart almost kind of like looks like a Scorpio rising chart because you're about a degree away. So something I would say to you is, you know, this is the precursor. If you're a late degree Libra rising, or if you're a Scorpio rising, the Mercury retrograde is the precursor before you get to the Mars retrograde at the end of this year. The mind is going to get reworked first. So it's going to be like, what is and is not working? How can I reassess things? Who can I reconnect with? And then down the road in December into next year, you're going to have a Mars retrograde here. Mars is going to retrograde right on your midheaven, and it's going to oppose Pluto. And that makes me feel like I would use this period now to restructure things, or to kind of revamp things, or whatever you want to do to kind of feel like you're getting back into the game. Because you don't want to wait until the end of the year when this Mars-Pluto opposition nonsense starts. It's going to be harder to get back into work, in my opinion. For Cancers in general, eclipses, the North Node, everything going through Aries is supposed to be really good for business, really good for work. But you got a lot of planets going through Gemini, so there's this feeling of kind of sitting back, reevaluating, and clearing. Also, Saturn and Neptune going, into Aries next year. You're going to see some retrogrades there. My interpretation of your chart is that it's trying to get you to kind of get on a schedule, right? So there's something kind of connected to that as well. She says, I feel like I don't resonate with friends at all. Is it also Uranus hitting my Venus? I've had bad anxiety. I feel super rebellious. Yes, it can be connected to that. Just a bit of a warning with Uranus hitting your Venus in the 8th out of 27. This means that you're more than likely going to meet somebody who may be entangled in a relationship because Venus in the 8th meets people sometimes in complicated situations. Now, that means you can meet them when you're going through a significant transformation. That is possible. But you can also meet somebody who's like, I'm going through a breakup, or I just got divorced, or, there's a third party involved. So just kind of keep that in the back of your head. Uranus will be kind of dancing with your Venus, which is really important because it's your chart ruler, and that has a huge impact on your body. It also is going to have a huge impact on your joint resources. This is about getting creative and thinking about some new unconventional out-of-the-box ways to be able to dress, to be able to carry yourself, to make money. And it can be very, it can be destabilizing because you kind of feel like, your body is kind of, running on a lot of caffeine, or you just stuck your finger in a light socket. So that can come up too. But I really genuinely feel like Uranus is here to liberate. That's what it's trying to do. And in the 8th house, it's like, oh, I could be liberated if I had a little bit of money. And I've seen some wild things happen with Uranus in the 8th house. It's like you could be struggling, and then suddenly there's this opportunity that comes in. Or sometimes people decide, well, I'm going to take a business loan, so that way I can really go and structure things and start building things out the way that I want. So I'm investing a little bit in my business so it can grow. Other times I've seen this materialize as a relationship that dramatically kind of comes into your life and changes things. Jupiter is in your 8th house pretty much all year into next year. So that makes me feel like it would be a good idea if you're trying to feel like you want to get back into it, where you're incentivizing your clients and you're creating packages, right? So like Gemini could be more than one thing. So it could be like, hey, if you want to buy, 2, 3, 4 services in advance, and, you pay cash, you're going to get 10% off. Or, you can save if you bundle. So if you want to add this service and that service, you're going to get a percentage off. Or, maybe you're going to do buy one, get one. Or if you have, clients, you tell them, hey, if you want to come and see me on Tuesdays, you're going to get a discount. These are things that you can start doing that will incentivize other people, and it may even be about some other service that you're going to start providing. Uranus can be anything revolving around like art, design. It can, especially in Taurus, it could be maybe you decide, well, I want to do, permanent makeup, or I want to do permanent jewelry, or, I want to offer something else on top of whatever I'm already offering, or kind of eccentric styles of things that you're already offering. So she says, I want to go back to school for aesthetic nursing. I don't know if it's a good idea, or I want to stick to it because I'm unmotivated. You actually do permanent makeup. So there's going to be something else that you're going to be offering. So I wonder, like, okay, if you want to do the nursing thing, you can with the North Node in your 6th house. The sun rules your, obviously, your 10th house, and it's in the 9th. So that does mean that, you would have to go and do some kind of continuing education in order to make that happen. But the Mercury retrograde would be a time to think about it. Jupiter in the 8th house could be good for loans and funding, and Saturn's trining your sun. So if that's something you decide you want to do, you can. I feel like with Mercury so close to the midheaven, it's really important to recognize that regardless of what you do, your job is going to be putting yourself out there and being like, I have to be announcing and talking about my services. That's going to be really important for you in the long term. When do things ease up a little bit? You're going to find that things will ease up a little bit, I think, when Pluto's no longer squaring. And that's going to be when Pluto goes back into Aquarius. So right around, the beginning of the year. And at the same time, you're having a Mars retrograde. So that means that you may be changing direction with your career as well. So knowing that that's coming at the beginning of December, the one thing I would say is you just really want to make sure that if you want to change directions in your career, you're committed to that, because there are going to be some things that are going to be changing direction for you professionally that's going to have some pretty big impacts on you later in the year. So make sure that you're committed to staying with the program if that's something you're going to take on. Saturn trine your sun, I think you can do that. And it looks like this year you are in a Taurus year. So this is an 8th house year, which is all about change. And that's where your chart lord is, Venus. And it looks like Venus is your time lord, at least until your birthday next year. So 8th house years are about endings and beginnings. Obviously joint finances, taxes, money, loans, debt, all that stuff. So the Venus retrograde is going to be really important for you next year, and that's going to be taking place around March of 25. It will retrograde from your 6th house into the 5th, and it'll conjunct Saturn and trine Mars. So I don't know how long it would take you to kind of like make some of these changes, but if you were able to develop new skills or something that would allow you to either go back to school or have a new service, yeah, I mean, I think this is very doable. But that Venus retrograde is going to be really important, because it's going to be about bringing in the necessary skills or resources for you to have your own business, right? Hopefully that's helpful for you. I love the Virgo, Mars in Virgo trine Moon. That's really great for for aesthetic nursing and skin and anything in regards to health, and Venus in Taurus as well. But there may be something else that you're going to decide to do if you don't decide to do nursing. So I would look into like what other things you could potentially get certified in, especially with Saturn and Neptune trining your Mercury. I think there's something else that might pop up. Anyway, I hope that's helpful for you. All right, so let's see, who do we have next? We have got Marsha, Let Your Light Shine, and then Queen of Light Bulbs and SR. All right, Marsha. And Marsha had questions about her health. So let's pull that up here. Let me pull up your email one more time. So curious about chronic health, autoimmune. Is remission possible, and what's kind of coming? All right. So, first of all, Marsha, it's nice to see you. I already called your name, Pam. You're in the queue. We've got Aquarius rising, Sun in Sag, and your moon is in Virgo. All right. So Saturn is your traditional chart ruler. Okay. Modern day is Uranus, but Saturn's your traditional chart ruler. So because we are in the midst of Saturn square, let's go to today's date. How about that? Because we're in the square of Saturn and Jupiter, that means that there is going to be some kind of challenge revolving around your body. So Saturn rules your 1st house. It's technically in your whole sign 2nd of money, resources, self-esteem, and it's squaring Jupiter in your whole sign 5th. So there's definitely there's tension that comes up with the body. Certainly Saturn retrograde in Pisces can be issues revolving around the immune system, and also things connected to the lymph nodes. And it can be about sleep. It can be about emotional well-being, so on and so forth. So with Saturn square Jupiter, ruler of your 10th house, you can feel very limiting revolving around getting things done at home, or feeling like you're capable of being able to keep up with creative things or even work. And you'll see this square now. It's going to kind of fade closer to the end of August, and then you're going to see this again around Christmas. And it could also be like a seasonal thing. So, keep that in mind, that, Mars and Jupiter and Gemini can be talking about that there's inflammation going on, which is creating, more issues with the immune system within the body. Possibly as you start to see this separate later in the month, things can kind of calm down a little bit. Now, your actual health is ruled by the moon, okay, because your 6th house is Cancer. And if we look at your moon, the moon is in Virgo at a 2, pretty close to the south node. There's been a retrograde right over your moon. So I don't know if this has just been more of a flare-up you've had recently over the last couple of weeks, but Mercury going retrograde over the moon is a lot of what's going on with my health, questioning whether or not you need to run tests, or if you're needing to see a healthcare provider or a practitioner. Could quite literally be you being like, I need to ask a question of my astrologer because the 7th house can be your astrologer. So something about this retrograde is like activating this. And I've noticed that, you know, Saturn is connected to your whole sign 2nd house, which can be food related. And you also have your moon at 2 degrees, which can be food related. So I will tell you that, you know, definitely having some changes revolving around your diet and stuff that can be more anti-inflammatory off the bat, just looking at those aspects can help. Now, your moon looks like it also makes a, a sextile to Mars, and that's pretty much the only real other aspect I can see. Too wide to trine your Mercury, kind of squares your sun, but not quite enough. She says, I sense it's a gut bacteria issue. Well, interesting you say that because the 6th house deals with your digestion. It also deals with your gut because that's what Cancer is. So the retrograde over your moon, which is technically in your 8th, could be about doing a detox or an elimination diet. It could be about changing direction when it comes to the types of food you're eating or incorporating fermented foods or other things that can be good for your gut bacteria. Virgo usually is connected also to grains. And so I'm not a dietitian, I'm not a doctor, but I'm kind of wondering, like with the retrograde there, have you experimented with like not having as much grain or gluten or anything like that? You know, that could be impacting your inflammation as well. Over the next week, we're going to see Venus oppose Saturn, and it's going to square Jupiter and Mars. So I think that, yeah, you're definitely going to see some stuff that's going to come up. It may ease up a little bit once the retrograde is over and planets are no longer on top of that retrograde moon. So it looks like Mercury will leave the conjunction by around mid-September, 12th, 13th, 14th. Things can get better. I will say they can get better. But there's other things going on other than that. You know, Saturn by sign is squaring your sun. You felt it a little bit this year, and it's going to start squaring next year as well. And this would be technically an 11th house sun. So it's going to be kind of saying that you're having to learn how to adapt in social situations, make changes with your health and your diet, and not be eating some of the same stuff as other people, because even that's at 26. So that's a Taurus degree. And you're also going to be experiencing the end of Neptune square your sun, so that can also be kind of, you know, clearing out any fog or any issues with the immune system or the lymph nodes. I personally feel like I would watch down the road when Mars goes into your 6th house, because when Mars goes into the 6th house, you're going to see some helpful transits and then some things that get a little tricky. So the helpful transits is definitely going to be when we have Mars in Cancer. So this is like getting back in action, both physically and emotionally with your health. This may be a lot of things that you're kind of working on and doing, where you're cooking a lot more at home, or maybe you're going to be, you know, organizing your home space, or just maybe you're feeling better. This will trine Saturn. Okay, so Saturn technically whole sign 2nd house is about responsibility, restriction, and limitation, even fasting. And then the trine to Mars means that you're maybe taking more action when it comes to, like, you know, preparing or cooking your own food. So that's a good aspect. What's challenging is that then you're going to have Mars retrograde in your 6th. So for all of my Aquarius risings, the retrograde will start in Leo, and then it will retrograde back into your 6th house. And it can represent being like, okay, I need to go and make some changes with my relationship to my healthcare practitioners, or I'm, you know, going and doing some testing, or I'm doing, you know, some new kind of diet or new kind of routine. So I think something like that is going to come up. That's going to be pretty strong starting in December, and it's going to oppose Pluto in your sign. So it can be seen as like relational issues, but I think this is more health stuff. Any insight about a sibling drama, their stress that precipitated with health? Well, you know, while you're having these Saturn transits, Saturn is actually sextiling Saturn, right? So your 3rd house lord of siblings is Venus, and it does look like you were born with Venus in opposition to Saturn. So there's not, I would say it's probably unusual that there isn't a period of time where there isn't some kind of like drama going on with a sibling, right? Part of having Saturn, which is you, in opposition to Venus, which can be a female sibling, is that there can be intermittent periods of being like, I can't talk to that person, or I need some space. And that was part of the lesson as Saturn went through Aquarius in recent years. Now you have Saturn squaring the North and the South node. That is bringing up drama with a sibling because it's in third house. It's something that's kind of like, you know, conflict or back and forth or whatever. And now it's squaring the North and South node. So if we look at the North node ruler, both Saturn, right, which is communication and home and boundaries, and then the Sun, which represents, you know, goals and groups and other people, it almost looks like with the square to the North and South node and the quincunx to your Sun, the Sag rising horoscope really resonates with this. It's kind of like, you know, there's health issues that are coming up and it's like making me feel really stifled. And, oh, it's coming from my Saturn, which is really in the third house. It's like learning how to say out of sight, out of mind. If you can't communicate in a healthy way or in a way that's going to be productive, then you don't read the phone call, you don't read the text messages, you're not engaging in the conversations, unless it can be something that is going to be structured and it's not going to be erratic and throwing you off of your routines. Uranus is the nervous system too, by the way. So when Uranus squares the North and South node, the nervous system is like shocked, and you want to use Taurus related things. Herbal remedies, Bach essences, grounding mats, crystals, organic foods, flower essences, right? All of these things. So I attribute this actually more to Uranus square the North and South node than anything else, in my opinion. And the fact that this week what's kind of brewing is a Venus, Jupiter, Saturn square. So even though it's materializing in your fourth, first, and seventh, like, look, even, you know, you've got Mercury going retrograde and it's squaring Uranus. It's about kind of hashing things out and being like, I can't entertain these conversations. It's making me sick. So it doesn't mean you have to, you know, cut somebody off. I'm not saying that, but it does mean that you will realize that it's not worth getting yourself all worked up over, and that you're only going to engage if it's going to be something that's beneficial. I would anticipate that the full moon is bringing this on as well, because the full moon is going to be in your first and it's square Uranus, which means you're going to go, my body, my health has to come first. This is not working, you know? So there's more that will unfold in November. When you see that full moon in Taurus, deal with it then. You don't need to deal with it right now. At least in my opinion. And, you know, Saturn in your first house says if you stay strong, you stay committed and structured, then the trine to your Venus means that probably she will realize, or they will realize, you know, you're not going to play the game, and that you're only going to communicate in a way that's going to be respectful, and like the relationship can evolve from that, right? So hopefully that's helpful for you. Good luck. All right, thank you guys for your patience. Carla says, for some reason I've been blocked from participating in the chat. Oh, weird. I don't know what that's about. I got your questions though, Carla. I'll call your name when you're coming up. Thank you guys for your patience. All right, let's see. Who else do I have here? We've got Let Your Light Shine, Queen of Light Bulbs, and SR. Okay, and that was Amber. Oh, I've got a couple Ambers here. Hold on one second. That was February 25th, 82. Is that right, Amber? Let me just double check this. Here we go. No, sorry. I've got a couple Ambers tonight, so I'm just trying to make sure I have the right one. Let's see. Double check this. Amber. Thank you. Let me see. There we go. June 26, 82. Gotcha. All right, I'm just looking for your question. Because for some reason I can't remember how you came in. Did you come in through the chat? Let your light shine, Queen of Light Bulbs. I don't see your question. It looks like they were removed. Sorry for the trouble. PayPal, okay. There we go. I see you. There was two. I got it. Okay, so I've got you and then the other. Let's see. Thank you. All right, I want to make sure this is the right one. This was the 11/11 birthday, right? 86, yeah. Okay, we got it. Thank you. All right, so Amber says, I know there was two messages, so I'm going to read the first one. So doing synastry, my ex and I were a little rocky at the beginning of the year, found out other girls in the picture. He came back around my birthday 2 months ago. He seemed to be a different person. He came to my town to take me to dinner on the 3rd and suddenly started getting cold and distant. He said he felt his 6-year-old son was crying at home. He felt guilty. With our rising signs being so close together, could this full moon next week bring up something from the beginning of the year when we stopped talking? Is this what happened to close things for good? What can I expect with this potential full moon? And then she said, looking at the synastry. Okay, got it. What can I expect during this full moon with this ex? And the full moon being in our 12th house. I found out lies he told about other females in the mix, and I said I was done, but then he recently came back in June with a new tune. Okay, got it. I'll do a review of who I have, but I have you here, Marie. I see you. I called your name already. All right, so let's take a look at Amber and this person. So Amber is Pisces rising. She's got a sun in Cancer, moon in Virgo. She's got an ex that is a Pisces rising, sun in Scorpio, and moon in Pisces. Okay. So if you want to know just about your chart, and then we'll just look at what's going on with the synastry or maybe even the composite, the Mercury retrograde is doing a number here because Mercury went retrograde right over your descendant, and it was with Venus. So that basically means that it was kind of the return of someone or something. And you didn't really need the retrograde to even begin for that to happen. Like the shadow started around the end of July. So I don't know when the back and forth was kind of going on. But the retrograde quite literally means you're reevaluating whether or not you're interested in kind of moving forward with this person. I also look at your natal Mercury. Okay, so your natal Mercury is in Gemini in its domicile, and it looks like since the end of July, Jupiter and Mars have been coming into conjunction with that, and the 4th house is the past. So it means somebody wants to come back around, they're from the past, and it can be about showing up, being around your home, all of this stuff. I kind of feel like there is going to be more reevaluations going on with this relationship. I think that it's going to be more so connected to when Mercury is actually direct. So Mercury is going to go direct. That's going to be happening at the end of August. It's going to come back, and you're going to have Mercury square Mercury. And that may be a time to watch from about, let's say, mid-September, right around the eclipse, when Mercury starts opposing Saturn. Like if I look at the pattern, you know, the back and forth here and questioning if you want to move forward with another person or consider the past, all the planets in Virgo, the Sun, Mercury, Venus, are all opposing Saturn. So this is basically saying that it's about you reevaluating things and being like, okay, is this good enough for me? Can I trust that this person's worked through their indecisions or their issues or whatever is going on? That's what this has been about. The other thing that I think about is that even when Jupiter retrogrades, it's going to hit your Mercury again. So that makes me feel like somebody could still kind of be hanging around even later at the latter part of the year. Right around here, end of December. And then again, I see this around May. And probably when Mercury and Jupiter conjunct the final time, which is going to be like spring of 2025, relationships are going to be more so defined because you're Jupiter and they're Mercury, and you will have made up your decision about a person from the past. But I want to show you something. I want to show you this eclipse that's going to be happening in Libra. Okay. So I've heard this from a lot of Pisces risings. If other Pisces risings had these issues, the South Node Libra eclipses, because it's connected to your whole sign 8th. So it's like about secrets and things coming out in regards to relationships. And when that happens, it quincunxes your Pisces placements. So you're like, am I not having good boundaries? What's going on? How did I not see this? And it's like lots of changes going on with relationships, obviously Libra. So when this eclipse comes through, it's going to be at 10 degrees and it's going to be really close to your Mars, like within a degree. And Mercury will actually be Cazimi. So this tells me there's going to be some sudden dramatic action revolving around relationships. Mercury rules the 7th house, which is other people. Mars in your chart has connections and associations with like possessions and things that you want and something that you're trying to achieve. And it's also going to be about like travel stuff. So maybe you're spending more on travel. Maybe you're wanting to go on a trip with somebody. I don't know. But this is going to have a pretty big impact on you because it's right on a personal planet. So keep in mind that you don't have to wait until next spring for you to be like, oh, I want to find somebody new, or, I need to figure out my relationship with this dude. This may actually give you your answer. And the fact that it's all going to in conjunct Saturn makes me feel like if there is more stuff that comes out about this person or more secrets or surprises or whatever, you might be like, I'm done. Simultaneously, this is ruled by Venus, and Venus is moving through Scorpio, which is friendly for a Pisces rising and for a Cancer. So it's trining all of your stuff, so I'm not worried about it. Mars is also going to be on your North Node conjunct the Sun, so it does seem to be insinuating that there is some kind of growth coming from a romantic relationship, right? Now, if we look at their chart with yours, oops, that's you. There we go. And we flip it around. He's a Pisces rising also, Sun in Scorpio and Moon in Pisces. So Saturn's hanging out between his Jupiter, which in a man's chart can be about him having freedom, not having any bounds. It could be about him traveling. It could also be about kind of like him being in his own kind of headspace. And Saturn and Neptune are still kind of hovering around his moon, which represents girlfriends, women, ladies, stuff like that. So there can be some sense of like needing to get clear about what his goals are when it comes to dating, relationships, and other people. This can also be feeling more responsibility for his daughter because the child, Cancer in the 5th house connection. Mercury rules his 7th house of relationships. So this guy has got Mercury retrograde. So that off the top tells me that the way he communicates and deals with relationships is different. It's Scorpio, 9th house. So this could be about relationships with people who could be far away or in other places. It could also mean that this could be somehow connected to travel, or it's at a 22, business in some regard. Old karmic patterns or connecting with people from the past or people he didn't cut off. That's possible as well. This is a tricky one, girl. That's a really dangerous Venus-Pluto conjunction he has there. And I don't mean physically, just like, Venus at an 8 is very Scorpio. And Venus is in his 8th, and it's retrograde, and it's conjunct Pluto. That's got to be like one of the most Scorpio placements I've ever seen for somebody's Venus. This guy likes toxic relationships, as much as I hate to say that. because Pluto is the dispositor of his Mercury, and it's conjunct retrograde Venus. And also he's got Mercury, which is relationships, in a square with Mars in the 12th house. So that tells me that he's got some kind of romantic sexual affairs, things with people behind the scenes. And it's like, he'll be like, well, you know, I met them in another city, or like, we work together. It's not a thing. We're just friends, you know. And with the Sun square Mars too, you know, this does tell me that this is an individual where you can't really tell them what to do. There is something with all these trines to Jupiter and his moon that he can be incredibly private. I don't know if you've noticed this about him, but she says, am I the karmic? Are you the karma? It's just and with men with these placements too, they like women that are very intense and sometimes can be kind of jealous or kind of, you know, possessive or what have you. But he's got a Taurus degree on his descendant, and he's got Mercury at 22. So partners for him should be some combination of like Taurus. It could be Scorpio. It could be, you know, Sag. It could be Capricorn. And yeah, he'll press buttons because that's how he works. If he's got Venus and Pluto behind his sun, it means that he'll kind of stir the pot a little bit and create some jealousy. So the retrograde's right over his descendant as well. The synastry, I'm not going to say it doesn't so much matter. It does. You know, you guys both have different mutable moons. So where he's a little bit more kind of creative and passive, you're a little bit more kind of between the eyes and direct. Your guys' Venuses don't see each other, because they quincunx each other, so they're not seeing each other. And your Mars barely trine one another, but it's there, so it can talk a lot about chemistry and passion and sex, but sometimes there can be challenges revolving around the emotional connection. And I think that actually stems more from the fact that, you know, there is a Saturn, Neptune, Uranus between these moons, between your guys' two charts. Okay, moon in the 7th house relationship can be there, but I feel like his Mars and his Saturn on the cusp of your 8th house, I know that's his. I mean, let's flip this around. I don't know how I feel about that. And his Saturn's on your midheaven. So, you know, there's some challenges here in this relationship. Getting caught up in the 8th house of jealousy and other people's drama. I mean, and I'm not, this isn't me like judging him. I don't judge people off their astrology, but I've seen enough astrology charts to know that if a man's got Venus at an 8 retrograde with Pluto in the 8th house, I wouldn't trust that man any further than I could throw him. That's just me. So you have to ask yourself if that's the game that you want to play with this guy, especially knowing that his 7th house Lord squares Mars. He will start fights with his partners, and his partners will try to teach him and be like, you know, this was wrong. Why can't you admit this? Like blah, 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 you know, and he'll fight it and he'll resist. But really, I think what you really want to know, because what you asked me was, well, what's supposed to be happening with this full moon? Well, the full moon's in your 12th house, and God bless Pisces risings, because a full moon in Aquarius in the 12th house is like, that's when, you know, things, I don't like saying like shit hits the fan, but like shit hits the fan. Like, at least you're going to deal with the craziness behind closed doors. I think that's the positive, right? And I think about how it's going to square Uranus, which is in the 3rd house, which means there could be some shocks and surprises or difficult conversations or something revolving around, you know, text messages and things you guys have discussed before and being like, why didn't you tell me this? And like, there's more stuff that's kind of coming out that you weren't aware of, right? She says, that's what he done. He'll do. So this may be a turning point where it's like there's a conversation that's had that's like, maybe this is not working. And what's interesting to me is like you guys are both Pisces rising. So the Venus in the 7th house in opposition to Saturn means that both parties might be like, well, I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that. You guys might have like a bit of like a standoff, you know? In the long and short of it though, looking at this is your composite chart that I wanted to look at really quick. I really feel like with the Sun and Mercury in the 7th house, you guys just can't stay away from each other. You know, and Lilith on the ascendant and it all squares, like both parties kind of seem sometimes to kind of want to be in control. And if you notice, Mercury is going retrograde, which rules your 7th house, right over your 6th house Venus, which means both parties are airing out their grievances with each other. And it's becoming very dramatic because this is squaring Uranus. So it's hard to communicate when this is kind of going on, you know? So you can try to work through it during this period, but I feel inevitably at some point down the road, when you start seeing mid-September come through, you might be like, I need some space. You're going to see that the eclipses will then start coming through Pisces and Virgo. And this might be another turning point, March of 2025. And then you're going to have another one that's going to be like right on your sun in September of next year. With a chart like his, if he's lying to you, and maybe you should say this to him, and I'm not saying this to be like nasty, but if he's lying to you, he's lying to himself, because he's limiting his ability to be able to have a real true connection with someone, and he'll kind of, he'll start fights in order to kind of diffuse the situation. So the North Node going over his moon, he's going to be really moody. Saturn's going to hit his moon. It means next year he's going to be like, I'm not dating, or I need to focus on my kid. And then you're going to see the North Node hit his Jupiter. And I think that's going to be when he's going to start focusing more on career. Once again, I'm not saying he can't have relationships. It's just the only thing he's got working for him this year is Saturn is trining. And Saturn's in his first house, which means he needs to be more responsible, more reliable. He needs to be less suspicious and kind of vague about things. And if he can kind of communicate with people, relationships can evolve. But partners are trying to speak to him and trying to talk to him about what changes need to be made to be in a solid relationship. See what happens on the eclipse, right? And watch out. Don't be trying to dig up the past or conversations or text messages around the full moon, because that's when things will get really intense between the two of you with that square. Good luck. All right, we've got Queen of Light Bulbs and SR. Thank you guys for your patience. We have closed readings for the night, but we will be back next week. All right, let's see what Queen of Light Bulbs asked. You're welcome. All right, Queen of Light Bulbs. Where is she? Cashing in, would love your input on a friend's solar return chart. What is that? September 3rd, 1982, 4:26 p.m. in Greenville, Illinois. But where does she live now? Still in that area? All right. Let's see, we're looking at solar return. So this is the next one. Oops, wrong location, sorry. Needle, there we go. All right, so we've got, wow, 0 degrees on all 4 corners. I'm sure you said something about that. I caught part of that about like the vertex and the other things. Hold on, let me go back. 0 degrees, ascendant, Chiron, North Node, vertex, point of fortune. Okay, so what do I think about all that? Well, let's pull up the vertex and the point of fortune. Ooh, on the descendant. So the first thing, I mean, these are the cardinal points. Whenever you see something at 0 degrees, that's very big. Consider that a restart, right? So whenever you see that, first thing you want to tell her is she's going to feel like she's going to feel the seasons, okay? I have 0 degree Libra rising, and I have 0 degrees on all 4 angles. So I know what this is like. Every 4 months, there's going to be a season of change, and she's going to want to know exactly which time is going to be about what. So quite literally, her year starts obviously in Virgo season, but it's almost like, it's going to be about work and health and relationships. And then as she's getting to Capricorn season, it's going to be more about, what's going on with career and reputation. And then, the spring, what's going on with health, body, what about what I need? And then we're going to get to the summertime. It's going to be about her relationship with her home and her emotions. So encourage her to do things on the solstice and equinox points to usher that energy in. She says, Lord of the year, Cancer, 7th house, annual perfection year. So that's great because it is kind of saying, especially with Venus being in its domicile in the 7th house, that's good for relationships. Yeah, it is conjunct the South Node, and you've got Juno and Lilith there. So she could be dealing with some karmic relationship stuff. Somebody might be coming back from past life or some kind of partnership lesson revolving around commitment, or whether or not, you know, she decides to choose herself. Obviously, the opposition to the North Node. But Mars is the chart ruler here. And if you look at Mars right on the cusp of the 4th house and it's in a square to Neptune, this tells me that there is a sense of her being like, I'm going somewhere, but I don't quite know where I'm going yet. That could mean traveling. That could mean where she's living. That could mean with communication. That could be with learning. And obviously, it's Neptune softens things. So I think that maybe she's just learning to communicate differently and like learning to not just spin her wheels, basically, if that makes sense. So great, especially when she's got, you know, a new moon that's kind of coming in on her birthday. So that's also a fresh start. It's happening actually. Her solar returns just before the new moon. And that's going to be in the 6th house. So it can be new jobs, new you know, routines, new health stuff, things revolving around like pets and responsibilities. So it's not, I mean, it is in a square to Saturn by about 5 degrees. So it can mean that she's setting new intentions revolving around her health habits and routines for better physical and mental health. That is possible. Changing direction with also her workspace, her office, her coworkers, you know, things like that can kind of be coming up. I love the fact that the point of fortune is sitting on the ascendant and it's ruled by Mars, which means she's being encouraged to walk, speak up, write, learn, travel. These are the things that she wants to do this year. She may have really strong impulses to like go places or to read certain books or to, you know, go for walks and stuff. And that may kind of clear her mind and give her a little bit more insight. We've also got a 29, and this is, might as well be 29, it's 2855. So that tells me there's major completions going on with career goals, with feeling clouded or feeling lost, with loss of sense of direction or purpose. So big things are kind of turning here, and I can see some stuff that's also going to get triggered in the future in regards to some of the eclipses. So for example, when I look at this chart, I go, okay, well, she's going to have an eclipse that is going to be right here. That's going to be very close to her Venus on her solar return and her South Node. So this could be prompting new relationship opportunities, which I think the 0 degree Libra would anyway. Then she's going to have an eclipse that's going to be in, let's see, right here. There's going to be an eclipse very close to the North Node in the 1st house, ruled by Mars. And Mars is technically trining Neptune and Venus. So this is all going to be about her health. So you got to tell her that, you know, like March and April with the retrogrades here and the solar eclipse here, it's going to be about preventing accidents because Mercury's retrograde on the ascendant, especially hitting her head, bumping her head, you know, anything like that in regards to head-on stuff or dealing with sinus migraine related things that can be kind of coming up with that quincunx her sun and her moon. Natal Mars is trining the moon in the 7th, annual house perfected ruler, and the trine to the natal moon. Yeah. Sorry, guys, I hear a fire alarm. Hold on.
Check all the rooms real quick just to make sure. We're not
Well, that's never happened before. Sorry, guys. Yeah, you can already tell that the Uranus things are happening.
It's just a low battery, but let me double check.
Oh, okay. Sorry, guys. Hold on a second.
You can keep going.
Okay. Everybody's like, "Whoa!" Don't worry, there's no fire. It was just the alarm. Okay, well, with the retrograde in our ascendant, it's very much connected to what's going on with like health and stuff. And then there's gonna be, is there gonna be another one for her birthday? just after. But that's going to be hitting kind of Saturn. So it'll be a different chart. But really, to me, it looks like, making the necessary changes in the routine, getting out of everyday kind of grind and focusing more on what's going on with the goals. And in doing so, that can bring relationships in. Because even Venus and Mars are kind of like in a square with each other. So...
There's one behind you, but I don't think that's the one that went off, is it?
No.
Okay.
Everybody's like, what's going on?
Do you have a candle burning in here?
No.
Alright.
I have no idea what that was, but I'm kind of curious where the ascendant is right now. I gotta check that out. Pisces. All right. Weird. This is like weird Mercury stuff. Sorry, guys. Let's see. What was... At least my alarm's working, that's for sure. I'm just reading and catching up. Okay, I was wondering about accidents. Yeah, and I would say, Mercury is the ruler here, and look at what Mercury is doing. Mercury is just coming out of a square with Uranus. So for me, this to me seems more like things that she wouldn't see coming. Technically, it's in the second house, so this could be more accidents revolving around money, transactions. It can be if she's doing something kind of extracurricular or sports, that is her whole sign fifth. But yeah, I would go and do a little research or give her some info on the cardinal points. And I definitely recommend every solstice or every equinox to be doing something to usher in that new energy, and explain to her that, when the sun and planets are going through some of these, especially the sun, these particular signs, that's when there's going to be some kind of like new initiation of sorts. And generally, if we look at... I don't know what is going on. It's so weird. Sorry, guys. Retrograde again. Sorry, all I can do is wait. I apologize. So weird. I've lived here for like 6 months and this has never happened, so I'm like, what is going on? Well, at least we're all watching this together, so that's fun. Mercury square Uranus things. Okay, well, let's hope it doesn't kind of come back. So hopefully that's helpful. Tell her to look into those points and tell her to get cracking with doing some traveling, all right? All right, so let's see. We're going to move now to SR. Thank you, SR, for your patience. And everybody else, I'll give you the whole list of who is in the queue. We'll be continuing to move on through those readings. Let's see. And I think, I know I have your chart somewhere. Let's see the question. All right. Let's see if I can find you here. Can I get your info, SR? Mercury has a lot to say. Yeah. Tell me about it. I don't... Looks like he's resetting something. Are you still there, SR? Did I lose you? I don't have your chart for some reason. I'm trying to find you, but I'm not seeing it. Thank you. Oh, duh. All right, let's take a look at your chart. I don't have it, so I need the time in the city if you can send it to me again. April 12th, 1975. That's probably one of the craziest things that's ever happened to me during a live, and I've done a lot of lives, so that was surprising. Thank you. And what is your question? How can I help you? My dad's watching this. He's probably cracking up. There we go. Insights into work, finances would be great. So looking at your chart, Pisces, Cancer rising, Sun in Aries, Moon in Aries. Okay, so there's a couple of things going on here. First of all, Saturn is still yet to come into conjunction with your midheaven. So you may, even though you're a Cancer rising, you're going to really feel the eclipse because it's going to be relatively close to your midheaven. So that's going to be coming next month right here, September 17th. Okay, so full moon lunar eclipse right on your midheaven basically is about being out in the open, being seen, big decisions and conclusions revolving around, your career, your reputation. And this is going to be in some harmonious aspects with your natal Saturn. And there's also some sextiles to Uranus. So that seems to talk about working with new groups, collaborating with other people. This is ruled by Jupiter and there's a square. So it does mean that there can be some unexpected change or shift of events that can be kind of happening in regards to your status and it could be your relationships too, but more so your status in regards to your career. The other thing that I look at is that, like I said, Saturn has still yet to come into your 10th house. So you're going to see Saturn move into your 10th house. That's going to be more spring of next year, right around the eclipses in March. And looks like you're going to have one on your IC. Wow. So you have one on your midheaven, which is like you're changing directions with where you're going with your work. And then in March of next year, you have one on your IC, which could be about moving, changes going on in your home or living situation while there is a retrograde here. Also met a boy, Cancer rising. He's from another country. So there is a possibility that something related to, changing either with your status, like being in a relationship or moving in with somebody creates a change in your living situation, or change at work helps you kind of expand or let go of old outdated situations in your home life, right? I'm thinking of leaving and relocating to be with this guy. So a lot of that's going to depend on like where it is and like looking at the astrocartography, but I could see, because Saturn represents your relationships, with Saturn going into your midheaven and reactivating that eclipse, that there could be a more serious kind of rearrangement and commitment that could be happening in the spring of 2025 for sure, especially when those eclipses kind of come through. And Uranus and Venus have been in conjunction, so that's interesting because that definitely is about like sudden opportunities and shocks in regards to, relationships and meeting people. But I like that being in your 11th house because it's about some kind of goal or wish fulfillment when it comes to relationships or partnerships. I would just say, you have to look at Jupiter because Jupiter rules your 10th house. So even though the North Node's going through your 10th house, Jupiter and Saturn are in a square, and it's basically saying if you really want to grow your career, because Jupiter rules your career, it's in the 12th house. So you may be considering moving to another country. This is a foreign land. And it's in a square to Saturn, which means you're reevaluating the relationship, feeling it out, getting to know each other, before you're making any big dramatic or sudden moves. I think probably what's going to happen when you come to the second Jupiter-Saturn square, which is going to be happening closer to right around December, when Jupiter is squaring Saturn again, and then you're going to have a retrograde in the 6th. This could be a time where you're like, okay, would I actually move? Am I looking for a job in another country, making it possible for me to be able to go somewhere new? That may be the testing ground right around, kind of like November, December. And if you do decide to do that, it may be getting reoriented in a new job completely in the spring of next year when you have some of those retrogrades in your 10th house. Let's see. So you're in a Leo year ruled by the sun. And that is a year that deals with money and resources. So the solar eclipses are going to be impacting you. The solar eclipse we had in April, right around your birthday, was like right on your sun and Chiron. So it was probably highlighting the fact that you were like, I'm ready to make a job change anyway. I'm ready to make a shift, you know, or I want to make more money, or I want to be more independent. So that was already brewing. And sometimes when we have eclipses on the sun, you know, men come into our lives. It can be business partners, future husbands. It can be significant, you know, relationships. And your sun is at 21. So meeting a foreigner, 21 is a Sag degree. So that's kind of interesting. I would just say that for right now, the Mercury retrograde that's kind of going on, which is an aspect to all of this, is getting your mind thinking about moving. It's just the squares to Uranus where you're like, well, will I make friends? Will I know people? Is it going to work out? You know, is it a good move? Like, am I going to like being in another place? So you have to, and maybe language barriers too. There could be other languages that you're kind of, you know, having to learn, or currency things, because it's squaring, you know, Uranus and Taurus. So you could be considering the difference in what it costs to live there, or currency conversion, or having to kind of learn a new system. I have a feeling that that solar eclipse planted a seed, and it was meant to get you thinking about making changes with your relationships and your job. And so this kind of comes full circle right around the time of the full moon in Aries. Will not be an eclipse, but this is seated during an eclipse right around your birthday. And that's going to be around October 17th, with the moon in conjunction to the sun, Chiron, and also, the moon and Chiron in the point from the solar eclipse, squaring Mars. So something's going to go on in October where you're going to be like, I want to do it, you know, or I feel like it's time for me to make the move, or emotionally you're like, okay, let's go. I would just say moving, you want to be careful with the timing of this. Because you are going to be having a Mars retrograde. It's going to go from your second house whole sign to your first house. So that could represent change in direction going on with your finances. Mars opposes Pluto. It could be that you have some support with moving, or that your financial situation improves if you are talking about going and living with somebody and you're having to kind of discuss those financial differences, right? But Jupiter is, you know, your natal Jupiter is conjunct the North Node, and that's about taking chances and being willing to go somewhere that's kind of foreign or unknown, and the willingness to kind of look for a job in another country. So it may be a good idea to start looking if that's something that you want to do as you're getting closer to like October through January. Hopefully that's helpful for you. That can be a fun example of Uranus, Venus. People can just pop into your life, you know, that you don't see coming. And, you know, money is the moon. So you're going to see Jupiter sextiling your moon pretty much all year in the 12th house, but it can bring you an opportunity to make more, especially when the Mars retrograde is over. When Mars is in Leo and it's starting to trine all your planets, you know, pretty much February, March, April. As soon as it starts getting into Leo and it's trining all of this, you're going to see stuff that's really going to kind of expand, you know. Let us know, where are you thinking about moving to? You'll have to let us know. That's really interesting. I love how all that Aries got activated from that eclipse and then everything changed. That's awesome. I want to make more money. Well, and also Saturn squares your sun. So if you're willing to sacrifice Saturn in the first house, your own home or living situation, 12, you're able to advance your career and also have a relationship. That's a really cool example of astrology. I really like that for you, especially with the square between Pluto. There's probably this feeling of it's always me, you know, and then finally you meet somebody and you're like, okay, I'll change jobs, I'll move. So it pushes you to make the sacrifice. So cool. It's kind of like Saturn in Pisces if you have Saturn at a 12. Who else? Okay, so that's everybody for the level 3. It took a little bit, but that's okay. We do not have a fire. I was like thinking to myself, I was like, oh my God, whatever it is, it's not me. Usually it's me that leaves things plugged in or like, you know, candles lit, but it was not me this time. I just want to make that known on the internet now, live. Okay, so we've got Jennifer, Danielle, Marie, Amber, which I think we got already. Maybe I thought there was 2 Ambers. Brandy, Pam, Carla, Curtis. Okay, I have all of you. So those are the ones that I'm going to see. But I do need to put in some info for Pam. If Pam is here, can I get the city that you were born in? And I also need to input Carla's information. So let me do that really quick now that I know that the house is not on fire. Craziest thing that's ever happened, but things happen. All right. So let's take a look at Carla. There we go. So 120.75. And that was at 5:15. I can hear my dog out there being like, what the hell is going on? Oh man. All right. Okay, so we'll save that. We'll pull up Pam's chart, and then once I get Pam's chart in, then we can get going. Thank you. Oh, I would love to do that. That sounds like fun. All right. Pam's chart is saved. Okay, so we're going to take Jennifer, Danielle, Marie. You guys are up next. Jennifer R. Let's see, where did I put her? Oh, it's Jennifer. Was there more than one Jennifer? Oh, it's Jennifer G. My bad. So Jennifer G. There she is. April 21st, 83. All right, this is for you, Jennifer. Jennifer says, full moon in Aquarius, stay-at-home mom here, just looking for guidance. What should I be focused on? I'm not sure what to ask, but I'd like to know what to expect. Okay. So she's April 21st, 83. Let's put her chart up here. There we go. And she's got a Taurus rising, sun in Taurus, and a moon in Leo. Look at all that. Taurus, girl. Okay, so give you a little bit of a crash course. So you want to read Taurus because you're a Taurus rising and a Taurus sun, but your moon is in Leo. So if I'm just kind of like looking at what's happening right now, in my opinion, there's two big things that are worth mentioning. One is the fact that Jupiter has been in conjunction to your chart ruler. And in the first house, it's great for beauty and appearance and self-love. You know, this is your whole sign second house, so it can mean that you're more fixated on how can I have more financial opportunities? How can I have more resources? How can I have more wealth? And Venus in the first house is usually about beauty and appearance, but second house could be, you know, I want to spend money on travel. I want to buy books. I want to take courses. I want to learn something. I want to travel, especially with Venus at a 9. And Mars has been there as well. So it's, you know, made you a little bit more passionate about being able to achieve some of the things that you want. Jupiter will leave the conjunction to Venus, but it is considered pretty good. You know, it looks like to me with your Venus in the first house and Jupiter, Uranus in the 7th, you have some pretty interesting storylines revolving around a back and a forth that you have in a relationship. Even if you are committed, this can represent sometimes you have a partner that travels for work, or there can be a little bit of back and forth that you guys can have about finances and resources where they're coming up with creative or unconventional ways for making money, Jupiter, Uranus. And there can be sometimes a little bit of like friction in relationships. And I say that also because Uranus is on your ascendant. So I don't know if you know that, but this last year or so, you know, Uranus, the planet of kind of freedom and change, and it can also be about liberation or just dressing differently, expressing yourself differently, is on your ascendant. So that impacts your the way that you dress, the way that you connect with people. It changes something about your kind of persona. So you've had a Uranus transit for years. It's gone through all of your personal planets. So it's almost like all the changes that you've done, almost like in a cocoon in your 12th house, is now becoming more visible. And sometimes we feel like we're kind of caged in and we need more fun, more spontaneity, you know, more self-expression, that kind of stuff. The other thing that comes to mind is the fact that you are in the midst of a Mercury retrograde in your 4th house, which means you are reassessing, reevaluating, what do I want when it comes to my home life? How am I expressing my emotions? What's going on with my family? Specifically, it can be your kids, because there was a Mercury retrograde from your 5th to your 4th. And this could be about how you are taking care of your kids' rooms, managing, getting kids back to school, or rearranging things on the home front. And it's squaring Uranus, which means you are being tested right now when it comes to communication. And maybe you feel like your kids can be a little bit more needy than usual. Maybe you're feeling like you just, can have some challenges in communicating with family members and relatives. This has kind of been hanging around since the end of July. For some people, sometimes this is about, considering relocating, moving, family coming to stay, or some kind of change that's going on with one of your kids. That's possible. I would just say be mindful that this full moon that's coming in Aquarius, all right, so it's going to be in your 10th house. And if you're a stay-at-home mom, obviously, 10th house is a little different for you. It's what are my responsibilities? What am I known as? What am I taking care of maybe as a parent? Because the 10th house can be about parenting responsibilities. What's going on with your own parents, right? And fun fact, the 10th house is actually your in-laws. So it can represent, what's going on with the family of your potential partner or your spouse. So when this full moon comes in, for most Taurus risings, it's like, oh my God, work is crazy. There's so much stuff going on. I'm getting pulled in all directions, and I have to give, I'm having a meeting or I'm giving a proposal, and I'm like kind of at my wit's end, or I'm stressed, square to Uranus. And also, by the way, I'm dealing with like a sick kid at home. So for you, it could be that you're like, well, I've been taking care of the kids, and I've got this and I've got that. But the square to Uranus is like, what about me? I want to do something too, and there is this sense of maybe feeling more incentivized to feel like you are working on or developing another aspect of yourself, where maybe you're like, well, I do, do something as a hobby, or I am focusing on other things outside of just my work at home. And like, yeah, you're going to feel like you're getting kind of pulled in every which direction. Full disclosure, that is something that you will feel. This also reminds me of what was going on in 2021 when we saw Saturn in Aquarius, and it was starting to square Uranus and Taurus. And so it could have represented some resistance maybe to making some changes in your status. Could be relationships, could be, work, or just responsibility in your life in general. Now this is actually the last full moon that we are going to see that's going to have a Uranus T-square. The last Aquarius full moon that's going to have a Uranus T-square in Taurus. So this is kind of like the final stress test that's kind of going on for you. And I would say, practice grounding, spend some time outside, do some gardening, do something that's going to be kind of just helping you zen out, so you can kind of better balance some of the expectations and the responsibilities and the things that are going to come. We'll see another Uranus kind of full moon, but that'll be in mid-November. But for right now, to me, it seems like there is like a energy that's building where you're like, I want to feel like I'm doing something else, or I want to feel like I'm producing something. And that doesn't mean you have to necessarily work or have a job, but it can mean that you're wanting to feel like you're contributing, or you're giving back to society, or maybe you're volunteering, or maybe you're doing something in association with like your kids and their extracurriculars that you feel incentivized to want to participate in. And the nice thing is that this full moon, even though it squares Uranus, it's playing very nicely with your North Node. So it can be getting you to open up to the potential of making like a side income, or having something that could bring in resources. And it's going to be trining your Pluto. So with a full moon like this, sometimes I see stay-at-home moms go like, yeah, I want to start a side business, or, I want to volunteer twice a week, or, maybe I want to get involved with, like stuff kind of connecting to my kids' sports teams, or maybe there could be more responsibility revolving around your family, whether that's yours or your extended family, that can kind of come up from this full moon. I would encourage you to learn about Uranus conjunct your ascendant. You can go and look up that transit, and also go and look up, what else do you have? Pluto is squaring your sun. And that's coming into your whole sign 10th house, square the sun, which means you are going to be feeling like there are some necessary changes that are needing to be made when it comes to your responsibility and your authority. And it's a closing square, so it is going to be kind of pushing you out of your comfort zone a little bit, and it will have a really big impact on, and you've been in it this year, so you're already feeling it. the relationships you have with men, father figures, brothers, sons, things like that. And you may really have some challenges with authority. With Pluto going into your whole sign 10th square your sun, there's a sense of being like, don't tell me what to do. So be mindful that that can kind of come up throughout that transit as well. Okay? Hopefully that's helpful for you, Jennifer. All right, so we have Danielle, Marie, and we have got, I think we already did Amber. Then we have, let's see, Brandy. Oh, you missed a lot. There was a lot going on. You missed. People are going to watch this tomorrow and be like, what the hell happened? All right, so we've got Danielle. So let's pull up Danielle. What's up, Danielle? We've got another heavy Taurus chart here. Let's see. There she is. You guys could almost be astro twins. You have a lot of similar aspects. All right, so what's up, girl? She's a Cancer rising, sun in Taurus, and moon in Aries. Boy, that moon's getting really close to the transiting north node. She says, hey, Candace, hope all is well. I've been feeling down lately, having a hard time moving on from a past relationship. Any news with these current transits? Well, yeah, I feel like it's kind of, as much as I hate to say it, it's kind of like a vibe right now. And it's a vibe right now because Jupiter wants expansion and action and some kind of movement and positivity. And Saturn says, hold on, you need to kind of scale back. Saturn in Pisces also can be about heavy emotions and feelings and limitation and what we feel like we've lost or like what we have dissolved in some capacity. Saturn rules your 7th house of relationships. So if you're experiencing a Saturn-Jupiter square, you can feel less optimistic about relationships. Now, Saturn going into your 10th house means that there's more focus and emphasis on, well, what is going on with my status in my career? You know, am I seeing the progress that I want? Am I getting the relationships that are getting visibility and commitment? Something that is out there. Saturn in the 10th house is about getting visibility. In a whole sign chart, you know, Saturn in the 9th for Cancer rising, first of all, it's friendly with your sign, your ascendant sign. Not only does it trine your ascendant, but it's also sextiling all of your Taurus. So there is a method to the madness. It is supporting you. And then 2, when it's connected to the 9th house, it's basically saying, well, it wants you to reevaluate your faith and your philosophy about relationships. And it's squaring Jupiter, so you're going to go, well, but I'm lonely, or, you know, I don't have anybody, or, you know, I don't feel like I have a lot of stuff to kind of fill my, you know, personal time. Obviously, you're very social with all these planets in Taurus in the 11th, so you do need social interaction. I don't think that you're somebody who likes to like not have engagement with others. And Jupiter can be about health, routine, you know, work, pattern, habits, and it's in the 12th house. And so be mindful that heavy moods can impact your health, both physically and also emotionally with Jupiter in the 12th house. And it's been conjunct Mars, so it means that you're like, I just want romance, and maybe you're watching a lot of like movies and stuff, or you're looking at old social media posts or other people, and you're like, I want that too. And it can be really affecting your faith and your philosophy revolving around how you look at relationships. And it can have you reminiscing and trying to kind of wrap things up because it's in the 12th house. Anyway, it's the heaviest in the next week because we are actually seeing, look, Saturn is at 17 and Jupiter is at 17. And yes, Jupiter in the 12th house is like hermit mode. So that's what's kind of happening right now. Eventually, these will kind of separate. So it's going to ease up a little bit over the next couple months. I think that the next couple months is integration. So we're going to go, okay, so, you know, we've had that experience, you know, now how do we move through it? I like 9th house Saturn transit, meeting people by going on trips, through education and training, through, you know, meeting people at airports. It sounds weird. And this could also be like working with relationship coaches or people who can kind of lecture or discuss their philosophy about love and relationships, and also the connection to meditation and relationships. And that can be a beautiful way of being able to work with this square. So you'll see one more square happen around Christmas, and then eventually there'll be one down the road, but that's going to be next year in a different sign. Relationship stuff happens when you have a good Saturn transit, right? And so in the background, even though you're not seeing anything, Saturn is trining, is sextiling your Venus. and also your Mercury, and also your Sun. So it's opening up the opportunity to communicate, travel, connect, date people. It's just wanting you to mix and mingle with different groups of people. Going places where there's going to be friends. If you know friends are traveling, you can go with them. If you know that there's going to be a friend that's in town, you visit with them. If you know that there's like a group or some kind of interest or hobby that you want to learn more about, you go and find people who are doing that. That's the best way to work with this energy. Now, down the road, you'll see in the spring of next year when there is a bunch of retrogrades and eclipses that are coming up in Pisces in March and April, it's going to be a very karmic time for relationships for you. Pluto's retrograding back into Capricorn. So you're going to see in September for the next couple months that this is going to be a complete reworking and revamping of relationships, finally letting things go that you have felt like you've been holding on to for too long and it's not working. And you're going to want to watch when Mars goes into Cancer and it opposes Pluto, because that can be a time where you're like, that's it, I'm really cutting this off. And it looks like that's going to be around early November. And then finally, the reason why the heavy moods are coming up is because there's major nodal activations going on. So sounds like you're feeling the Jupiter-Saturn square, but it also feels like Saturn is conjunct the South Node. And that basically means that you're like, I want to be free of being stuck in the house. I want to be free of the relationship karma, right? Saturn in Libra. And sometimes Saturn South Node can be good if you have an exalted Saturn. So it means that you're kind of reminiscing, going, okay, it was good for a period of time, and now I'm kind of putting it on a shelf, you know? It can bring heavy moods. You can feel blocked. You can feel like you're kind of wanting to move or get out of the house. But right after that, the South Node is going to hit Jupiter, which does make me feel like you're going to have a different routine of some kind, or there might be some expansion at work that's going to kind of get you out of the house so you can go out and do more. What's nice, and I had this transit, like, I think it was like a little over a year ago. Yeah, about a year ago. The North Node was conjunct my Aries moon. It does make you a little bit more feisty, okay? Maybe you're not as much because it's in the 10th house and it opposes Saturn and Jupiter, but with the North Node conjunct your moon, you're tapping into those emotional instincts. And the moon in Aries is feisty and fun and competitive and kind of direct and assertive. And this is going to be, in your 10th house. So it's about kind of gaining visibility and like seeing people. And that opposes Saturn and Jupiter, which means you may catch the attention of somebody who might live in another place. Anyway, I think that I would lean into some of your emotional impulses when it comes to your career and visibility and connecting with people. It can be a really prominent time that's kind of happening for you professionally, because there's going to be a bigger storyline over the next 2 years as Saturn and Neptune hit your moon, that it could be about, meeting a future significant partner. It could be about meeting somebody at work. It could be about working with a partner and starting a business. And this is like 2025 and 2026 as Saturn and the moon come into conjunction. That will be your Saturn opposition, by the way. So that can be a big turning point where if you feel like, man, I've always been kind of challenged with relationship growth and nothing's really evolved. This is where all of a sudden there is like a new identity, right? Aries, that's emerging. That's about a partnership and a merger with like another person. So you have a lot to look forward to. I would really recommend it. It sounds like silly and kind of cheesy, but like the Deepak Chopra meditations on love, they're on YouTube. They're really good. Especially having Jupiter, in this particular house is about kind of spiritual meditations and like reflections on your philosophy when it comes to healing and like overall purpose. And so it's trying to clear out the old, right, to bring in the new. So I hope that's helpful for you, Danielle. That's always good to read for you. All right, so we have, who else do we have here? We have Marie, and then we have Brandy, and then we have Pam. All right. So let's pull up Marie. What's up, Marie? Get my PayPal up. Sorry, guys. All right, so she's a Sag rising, Sun in Gemini, and Moon in Capricorn. So let's take a look and see what her question is. All right, so Marie says, full moon in Aquarius reading, June 19th, 1970. Place of birth, Hawaii. What's my ideal career, job, or vocation that would bring me a living wage? Married life has been difficult for a long while. I'm a stay-at-home mom, homeschooling my youngest child since I worked. Last time since I worked was 97, and I have a biology degree, and I did nothing with it after seeing the corruption of the medical industry. Wow, okay. So, let's look at your chart. This is one of my favorite questions to answer. So you're a Sag rising, right? Jupiter obviously rules your chart, and you've got Jupiter in the 10th. Pretty good place to have Jupiter. Jupiter is retrograde, so it means that you're working out some kinks, or there will be periods of re-evaluating your faith, your philosophy, your belief about relationships and people that you work with or people that you partner with. This can also be tied to your romantic relationships as well. Jupiter in this particular placement is in a trine to your sun, okay? And you can't see that because your sun is intercepted in the 8th house, which means that sometimes change can be difficult when it comes to, your career or partnerships or things like that. But if this were a whole sign chart, the sun would rule the 9th house of education. So number one, Jupiter being in the 10th house is always somebody who has some sense of knowledgeability, and they're very capable of having success with leading people, whether that is a teacher or a manager or a preacher, it doesn't matter. And then two, being a Sag rising, that's really strong because you're taking a aspect between your chart ruler, and technically it's in a trine to your 9th house lord of education. So teaching, inspiring, helping other people. Obviously, this is a chart pretty well distributed. It does look like with the moon in the 1st house and the sun and Mars in the 7th house, there is this emphasis between balancing what's best for you and things that you need to do with the responsibility of others, be that your kids or, even your relationship. For career, I look at the ruler of your 10th house, okay, which it's Libra, so it's Venus, and Venus is in the 8th. So it tells me that, when it comes to your career, part of your job, because your midheaven is at a 5, can be working with younger people or with children or with creative things or self-expressive things. And Venus in the 8th house is about getting financial support from other people. Now, I hear you on, well, it's challenging. It hasn't been easy. You do have your natal Saturn in the sign of Taurus. So I don't think I've ever met a natal Saturn in Taurus that doesn't say that they want more money or they want more freedom or they want, the capability of being able to kind of provide for themselves. So because Saturn rules your money house and it's quincunx, your ascendant, and by sign, it also kind of squares your Venus. There is a sense of being like, there's things that I want to do, but I don't know. I have kids that I'm taking care of, and I've got a partner that supports me, Venus in the 8th. When do I see things change? I see things change when you have a hard angle or a planet that's transiting over or around Venus, which you will have at the end of this year. So I'm going to put a pin in that for a second. Other things that I look at is I also look at, what's going on with your 6th house ruler, because this tells me more about your skills, your services, the kind of place that you would work. So Gemini on the 6th house cusp basically means that you're flexible, you can multitask, you can do more than one thing. This is ruled by Mercury, and you've got Mercury in this house, okay? And Mercury squares the north and south node. So it tells me that in order to have a daily established work routine, if you were to have a job, this would be like, I have to have something flexible, or I need to have something that I can create my own schedule, or, I need to be able to do something that involves literary work. It can be about documents. It could be about some kind of business management, because Mercury is in the 10th house, in the 6th house at a 10. And Mercury trines your midheaven. Okay, so Mercury can be about partnerships, clients, other people. This can also be about some kind of like business related thing. You got several things here that indicates you could do a business that's revolving around clients. Anyway, Mercury in the 6th also is great for like sales. It could be good also for like editing or like freelance writing or anything of that regard. And then something else that I noticed about your chart, obviously, is that you've got Uranus right on the midheaven. So that's kind of significant. Because Uranus, it's what's unconventional, it's unusual, it's different. So when people have a planet on an angle, usually it's pretty prominent. So having Uranus on your midheaven means that you may have a Uranian type of job, something that can be social or about, bringing groups of people together or collaborating with others. It is at a 4, so it means unusual home or living circumstance. And this is connected to Aquarius, which is your whole sign 3rd house lord, which can be about communication and learning. Did I read your question correctly? I want to go back really quick. Stay-at-home mom, homeschooling my youngest child, age 15. See, I kind of look at this and I go, with Uranus on the midheaven and it's the whole sign 3rd house ruler, like you would do really well doing I mean, and I'm not saying you have to do this, but like doing pod homeschooling. Like you're already doing homeschooling from home for your kid, okay? And you may not be crazy about this idea, but I think about being like, oh, she could do something that could be unconventional from home, that would still be teaching, writing, or helping people. Now, you could decide that you want to start a business where you're going to be doing some kind of, not mentoring, but you're going to be doing some tutoring. And you could be doing this locally, or you could be doing this with people like via Zoom, because Aquarius could be stuff that's kind of online. And what you're going to see with Jupiter in your 6th house this year is like, if you want to take on something else, if you want to take on a side job, or if you decide that you want to try something from home, or if you want to do some kind of, teaching assistant work or something like that would work because it works very well with your chart. But generally, Libra midheaven, these are people who are like, I want to make art. I want something beautiful. I want to work with partnerships. And your Venus is at a 4 in the 8th, which means that you need to have a service or something that you can offer people for them or for their kids that is going to allow you to do this work from home. That's why you're doing the work that you're doing now, homeschooling. But there's a way for you to be able to make money doing it. Jupiter going into your 6th house this year is saying, well, we could bring you clients if that's something that you really want. It's just a matter of you making the conscious decision to say, yeah, I want to start something. Now, the next question is, well, when would she start something, right? When would that happen? If that's something you wanted to do. My guess is it's going to be a combination of the solar eclipse right on your midheaven, right here, okay, around early October. This will be a solar eclipse, which is planting new seeds of action. It's got a Mercury Cazimi, which means you're telling either a partner or other people, hey, I'm doing this thing if you're interested, or I'm starting this group. And then you're going to have Mars, which rules your home and something creative, will go retrograde over your Venus. And that means that there could be some change in direction in how you're kind of choosing to navigate teaching, education, children. Maybe you're reevaluating something about money that you could make, or going through some changes with your joint finances of some kind. Will be interesting because it's going to oppose Pluto in the 2nd house. So it might mean that it incentivizes you to go, yeah, I want to do something too. But Uranus on the midheaven, I've seen people who are like, I'm an astrologer, or I work in science or biology, which if you have a background in medical, obviously, I'm sure that you do. Especially anything revolving around women, because Venus is the dispositor, right? Or, wanting to help people heal from chronic illness or chronic disease, especially with Mercury sextile Venus. I kind of feel like you could still do that work if that's what you wanted to do, but it would be something that would be more psychological, transformative, therapeutic, right? With Venus being in Leo in the 8th house, like child psychology, or working with people who've experienced trauma, or helping people, who are going through situations where, they're dealing with addictions or issues in relationships, and like helping them with healthier habits and developing new habits with that background that you have in medical. But working with children or younger people, because you have a 5 here, and you have Mercury trine that. So I think that, what happens, you got a 15-year-old, right? So it sounds like pretty soon they're going to be an adult and, probably going off to college, I would assume. So once that happens, what's the plan? What do you want to do, right? You don't have to do anything. But I will tell you that South Node eclipses going through Libra the last year and a half has been, having you focused at home as a sad rising, even whole sign the next 2 years of eclipses in Virgo in the 10th house is going to change that. It's going to put so much emphasis on Pisces in the 3rd/4th, which means kind of hate to break it to you guys, but I really feel like, and I'm not the only astrologer who said this. I have a lot of astrologer friends that are people that you know on YouTube that won't say this, but we have had conversations and discussed this. Like, I think there's like COVID 2.0 coming next spring. So I say that because of the Saturn, Neptune, and Pisces stuff and all the eclipses and the retrogrades. I look at this going through your third house and I go, interesting. If there is, God forbid, some weird like global event or something taking place next year, like you could teach from home and you could do pod stuff, or you could be, you know, helping and assisting, you know, people with tutoring, or you could be saying, yeah, you know, if you don't want to send your kids to school and you want them to be homeschooled, you can pay me to do it. I'm already doing it. So those things could come up for you, as could starting a local business, something mobile, something involving writing, education, websites, things like that, right? I'm sure you're going to see some interesting turn of event. There's going to be something that's going to be coming up for you where you're like, do I want to go back to school? Am I going to make a change in direction with, you know, like wanting to work again? And that you're going to start feeling it as soon as Mars starts coming into Leo. So that's going to be right around the beginning of November of this year. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Marie. All right, so I've got Brandy, and then we've got Pam, and let's see, who else do we have? Yeah, Brandy, Pam, Carla. You guys are all on deck. All right. Okay, so let's pull up Brandy's chart. Is it in here? No. All right, so Brandy, 122.86 in Omaha. All right, Brandy says, I wanted to know if you could give me some insight on my business ventures during this full moon. I'm launching my intention oil and crystal necklaces on Etsy, as well as my life coaching business. Just things to look out for and be mindful of. Austin and oh, thank you, Julian. That's really sweet of you. I appreciate you. Yeah, Austin, I got you in there. All right, so question, Brandy, if you're there. Are you launching on the full moon? Are you? Should I go back to this? All right. So Mars rules your 10th house of career. Okay, I was about to be like, please don't. Okay, so you're getting ready. All right, cool. So when we look at the full moon, the 8th house is joint resources and other people's money. Okay, and then the Sun and Mercury coming together in the 2nd house means that there's a lot of reorganizing and reassessing something that's going on with what you're investing into a website or media. You know, maybe you're starting to get all the marketing, the branding, the media stuff ready. And this is also going to be maybe about like stock or, you know, working with certain suppliers that are going to be creating products and things like that. And this full moon looks like there's going to be, for everybody, shocks and surprises. That's what you're going to hear, shocks and surprises, because it squares Uranus. And so it may be about, you know, being like, okay, my goal is to complete this, to get this ready to go so I can be making some money, and you're showing it to other people and you're getting some feedback on stuff and asking other people what they think. This also represents banking, loans, credit, you know, stuff you're having to pay other people. So this can be a very financial moon, and maybe there can be like the sense of being like, I've been building this up and doing this stuff and getting everything ready, and I've been paying people to help me set it all up and get it together, and now stuff's being presented to you, and you're going to be like, okay, do I feel like I'm getting my money's worth, right? Thankfully, the full moon trines your moon, which is your chart ruler. So I feel like this is about your vision coming to life. It's conjunct your Jupiter, which is pretty fortuitous. And it's about, you know, kind of completing something magical, which that's what the products are, to be able to ship internationally maybe. And I love that it's oils because Saturn in Pisces is about oils. And It does slightly, well, not slightly, it creates a grand fixed cross in your chart, which makes things happen. So it's squaring Mars in your 5th house, pushing you to be creative. If you're going to launch this in September, I'm not going to tell you when to do it, but I am going to tell you that you want to see something good going on with Mars. So we want Mars to come out of the square with Neptune. We're going to see Mars go into your 12th house. And remember, your marketplace is your 7th. So Pluto retrograding on your descendant is actually really good because it's going to be bringing some kind of recognition to your stuff. You could do something like the full moon eclipse-y time, because at least there's going to be a square to Jupiter here. So right around mid-September, that can bring a lot of recognition from groups and other people. But another thing you can do is you can wait until Mars starts coming into a trine with Saturn. And that is going to be like right around the 25th through the 30th. And then you're going to have a solar eclipse that's going to happen there, which could also be about like getting ready to launch some kind of website stuff or doing more marketing at the beginning of October. And the time to really watch, I think, is going to be the full moon in Aries on the 17th. Because there is going to be a full moon in your 10th house of career, which is bringing recognition of something you've been doing. And it's going to square Mars on your ascendant. So it's going to be like, okay, it's out there. So just because you're launching in September, it's going to be like, you're probably going to have something set up for each month where you're like, okay, this is what we're promoting. This is what we're doing. So you want to be getting that stuff in order now, be making sure you're getting your money's worth, especially if you're working with somebody who's helping you do the media and the marketing and getting everything ready for the distribution of products, right? But full moons aren't bad. I just feel like this is more like financial than anything for you. That's really what it looks like. And with Saturn being the ruler, the traditional ruler, and Saturn trine your ascendant, I think it's helpful. And also Saturn trine your Mars. So it does look like there is a lot of incentive to be like, I got to get this out in the next month. Just anything revolving around shipping and handling, receiving. Sometimes with Jupiter and Saturn squares, we see limitations or shortages or delays with shipping. So I would say make sure you know the ins and outs of like your supplier and the shipping and all that stuff and the prices and the fees. There may be some changes and things that go on, or there may be some challenges revolving around shipments that can be like overseas because of the squares to Jupiter, right? Buying products, hire assistants to help with all that. Yep, already delays with shipping. Okay, so there you go. So you're already seeing it, but you're only going to see it now and you're going to see it around Christmas time. So knowing that the first square is coming up like this, then it's going to be like, okay, as we're kind of going into the second square later in the year, knowing that it's going to be right around Christmas, I'm telling everybody who are clients of mine who have like product-based businesses, because we're going to see so many delays in December, you guys want to be like, get your holiday orders in by like, the 10th or something. Giving yourself adequate time. You're going to need probably about 2 weeks because we're going to see so many issues with delays of import and export and stuff at the end of the year that, this is just preparing you for that. But I think it's definitely a good time to go. Let's just wait until we get Mars out of the square with Saturn. So that's going to be happening literally in the next week. And I also would prefer Mars not to be in a square with Neptune. So we got to get Mars at least into Cancer. So maybe sometime around that eclipse that's going to be happening in Pisces mid-September. Okay. Congrats on that. I hope it goes well. All right. So we've got Pam. Welcome. All right, so we've got Pam here, and she says, hey, I want to buy a house for investment as soon as I can by this month. When and will it be successful? Next year, I want to get promoted to be a senior lab tech. Do you see me getting promoted by 2025? Any relocation that'll happen in the next 2 or 3 years of my life? Well, sounds like you have Uranus on your ascendant and you're really restless and you want to move. So I'm going to be really honest with you. I don't know where you live, okay? But part of what's going on right now is Uranus is on your ascendant. So Uranus wants sudden change. It wants freedom. It wants liberation. It doesn't matter where you live. There is this sense of being like, I got to make a change. That could be your hair, your appearance, your location, all of that stuff. a Mercury retrograde is happening right now, which means that you're going deep and you're reevaluating and you're trying to kind of make sense and trying to make something happen when it comes to your living situation. So when people have retrogrades in the fourth house, I see them go, I'm outgrowing this place, I need to find something new, or, you know, I can't stand my neighbors, or, you know, my roommate's moving out. There's always some rearrangement. And Mercury in your chart rules money, okay? So ethically, I can't say to you, yes, buy a house, do it this month, if your money lord is retrograde in your fourth house, because it means that you could make a jump on something because you're restless and you try to get into something and there could be issues with the house. It could mean that you rush through the process of buying. It doesn't get an adequate inspection. Mercury also deals with like creativity. So it also tells me that you feel like you need new space, either because you want an entertainment room, or you have a kid, or maybe you want space in case, you know, you want to live with a partner, or maybe you want to move a partner in. Something like that's kind of coming up within the home. So the home's needing to change. On top of Mercury being retrograde, it is also square Uranus, which means you're kind of at odds with yourself, because part of you is like, I really want to make this change, but am I making the right move? And Mercury is about possessions, and because it's saying there could be some kind of change, now is not the time to be doing that. And I really feel like, honestly, yes, you can buy a home. Mercury is possessions. So when you see something positive going on with your natal Mercury, which I'll give you a couple times for, I could see a move, a relocation, or something like that going on. Now, the other reason why I'm telling you this is because Jupiter and Mars are coming into your second house, which means that you're feeling really adamant about wanting to invest your money into something, wanting to own something. And it's coming into a square with Saturn, which is basically the ruler of your 10th house. So you're wanting to expand faster than you actually can. So it could mean, well, sure, I'll go and put money into a house, or I'll buy something. But I also, you know, I'm hoping I get a promotion or something so I can kind of cover the mortgage or whatever is changing when it comes to my living situation. So there's a lot riding on, you know, the security and the stability of your home based off of what progress you make in your career. I will tell you that the eclipse that is kind of coming through. So first we have a full moon on the 19th in your 10th house, and that can bring some kind of significant change in regards to your work or your status. I would start there before getting a house. I would see what happens with, this particular full moon, because it can be about a big change with work, status, bosses. And it will square Uranus. So this is a time where there can be a little bit of friction with like upper management or superiors at work, and you can kind of be like, don't tell me what to do, something like that. And it can bring up some issues with communication with people at work. Then you're going to have a second full moon, which will be an eclipse, and it's going to be pretty close to your 10th house cusp, and in between Neptune and Saturn. So it's trying to get you to think about your long-term goals about, well, what are your goals with your career and making more money? You need to see some significant positive transits between Saturn or Uranus to see that progress. And you don't have it right now, but I do feel like when Jupiter retrogrades and it's trining your midheaven, you could see some real progress that could be coming later in the year. So this looks like it could be right around the end of October. You could also see this right around the end of November. And I could see this coming in again right around the eclipses next spring. Okay, so there's going to be maybe working with a new team of sorts in spring of 2025. Anyway, buying a house right now, I can't recommend. And the other thing that I'm thinking about in the back of my mind is that Mars, which represents, your relationships, and it can represent things that you didn't see coming, Mars will go retrograde in your whole sign fourth house in December. And that means changing directions again, or realizing you're not crazy about the neighborhood, or, maybe you're not so sure about a home. I would rather, if you really want to buy a home, if you wait, first of all, I think 2026 is going to be like the year astrologically. And there's several other people that are online that have said the same thing. I think Astro Victor was saying that too. But the market, I think, is going to change when Mars goes retrograde into Cancer. We're going to see big housing market changes at the end of this year, just in general. But 2026, I think, is a better time. If you must do something sooner, I would say, okay, let's get Mars in a trine to Saturn. So that's going to be right around March of 25. and the sun, okay? So you're able to have more spending power, that's committed. You know, you've seen some progress at work, and it can actually help this change in direction with your home. However, while Uranus is going through your ascendant, where you feel kind of like, I'm restless, it's also squaring your moon. So even just buying a house and getting settled isn't really going to make you feel settled until Uranus is out of a square with your moon. So another option would be kind of the end of June going into July of 2025. And even then you're going to have a Mercury retrograde there. And this sounds crazy, but like in the future, you know, you're going to also see that there is going to be some changes that are going to be happening with Pluto getting really close to your sun. So that's going to be about a big shift revolving around like the actual job that you're working or the country that you're living in, or like, you know, something like that. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Let's see. Oh, I'm just saying that you know what? I read that wrong. That was on me. Sorry about that. I'm just reading that message now. Hold on a second. Let's see. Why did I see something different? Oh, maybe I was looking at the other one. August 30th. Hold on a second. Does that look right to you? New Zealand? Let me know if that's right, Pam. Sag rising, moon in Taurus. Yeah, okay. Would have helped if I saw that sooner. That's okay. All right, so as a Sag rising, Pisces is in your fourth house. So you're in between the Saturn-Jupiter square. So this means that for the next year, Saturn's going to square your first house of self and the seventh house of others. Are you in a relationship? Or is this dealing with a sibling or a neighbor? Or are you trying to meet someone? Or is your partner wanting to move or relocate if you're in a relationship? Okay. Depending on where they want to go, Jupiter and Mars in the seventh house is like, let's go somewhere, let's expand. Like, let's go out and do something like new. Let's go somewhere else, right? And they're more adventurous. And Saturn in the fourth house is like, no, I think we need to stay put, or we need to buy a house, or we need to be kind of grounded. And there's going to be some back and forth about that. So looking at this, the soonest that I could see something happening, although I still can't recommend it, is going to be the 17th of September. I'm not saying that day, but there's an eclipse in your fourth house, which means there's this feeling of being like, we need to make a change on the home front, or we need to decide what we're doing. This will square Jupiter, which means your partner's going to be pushing for more expansion. And there's going to be a lot of back and forth between the two of you guys all year. Between Saturn in the fourth house square Neptune, where you're like, do I know what I want? And Jupiter in the seventh, which is like, let's try anything. Everything's kind of all over the place. The other thing to consider is that while Jupiter is in a square with Saturn, that's going to limit your ability to do anything. So you're going to feel the limits right now. You're going to feel the limits also again. That's going to be happening around Christmas time. I would say if we can get Jupiter into better aspect with something, like if we can get Jupiter into a better aspect with your natal Saturn, that would be a better time to purchase something. So you're going to see Jupiter come into a trine with your Saturn, and that's going to be right around June of next year. Sun, Jupiter, Mercury, trine Saturn, right? And, you got other things going on too, but with the eclipses that are going to be in your fourth house, that's better time for movement. Progress in your career, South Node's hitting your Mercury. So you're going to see there's probably going to be some changes with relationships and partnerships at work. That's going to be a really big theme between now and the beginning of the year. And because the 10th house is ruled by Mercury, the South Node Mercury means you may have a complete change of work altogether. Now, you may not see that yet, okay? That's going to be like maybe a boss steps down or something like that happens where there's like a change in upper management. And I could see that right around here, right around September of 25, okay? And this is going to be a full moon. There's also like an indication that, depending on where you move or where you live, if you're looking at other areas, it could, give you the opportunity to do work somewhere else and you'd be like, okay, I'm willing to leave. That comes up in your chart too. You're having a Uranus opposition pretty soon. So with Jupiter and Uranus on your ascendant, usually that's somebody who's really kind of like, anything is possible. We can do whatever we want. And now Uranus coming into your 7th house means now there's lots of change going on in your relationships. And it's like prompting you to kind of like move and try new things. So being that squares the nodes, it basically means that a partnership's going to either be really adamant about wanting to try something new and kind of breaking out of the routine, or they're going to get restless. That's what's going to happen. Especially because it's going to quincunx, Neptune, and Pluto. And you have Gemini descendant ruled by Mercury. Do you work with your partner at all? Is there anything like that? Or have you considered, taking a job from a friend, or have you and a partner talked about starting some kind of like collaborative business? Okay. That's not a bad idea. I mean, I know you're saying no, but that's not something. It's something I would at least talk about, even if you guys are in different fields. Like Jupiter and Mars in your 7th house right now is like, what can we come together and like create that would be fun? Sure, it could be stuff involving kids or travel or whatever, but this is about some kind of hobby or something that you guys could do together that could further kind of perpetuate making the necessary change to give you more freedom if that's something that you wanted in regards to your career. So there was more time for traveling or, learning or extracurricular things, because that's what comes through your 9th house. And Mercury's been retrograde over your Venus, so you've been wanting to have a change with work, but it's not going to come quite yet. Look for the full moon in November, right around here. That could be some job change stuff. And watch when the South Node hits your Mercury. So that's going to be around kind of January. And you might see that there are certain groups of people like leaving at work, and there's going to be some kind of change with staff. And then when the Virgo eclipses come through the next 2 years, there's going to be some definite changes. But just looking at your natal Mercury, to me, it seems like it's about kind of breaking away from feeling like you need to be working with other people or in collaboration with other people, and bringing you more of the opportunity to either do something at a distance or to relocate and take on another job if that's something that you wanted to do. Or transfer. That could be another option with Libra. It could be that you have a relationship with an employer that would allow you to do that. But I would say by the time you get to next year, when Mars is trining Saturn, which I still think is a better time if you really want to buy something, after you've gotten out of the retrograde, you could be settling into something right around spring of 2025, especially right around March, April. Just keep in mind, any house that you look at buying with Saturn in your 4th this year, you need to have it checked for mold, water damage. You need to check the pipes, check the kitchen, check the plumbing. Make sure that you're not in an area where there's going to be flooding or any major storms, because that can happen with those placements being in your 4th house. Okay? And go and learn about Saturn square your North and South Node, because that's the transit that you're in right now, and that's why you're like, I need a home. But it's trying to get you and your partner to be on the same page about whether or not you're going to be grounded or you're going to go somewhere else, right? Hopefully that's helpful for you, Pam. Thanks for your patience. All right, so who else do we have here? All right, so we have got Carla. Okay, now I can take you, Carla. You're welcome. Okay, I'm going to have to scroll all the way up to those messages, girl, because I did not get a chance to read them. Okay, here we go. So Carla says, I purchased an apartment. So first of all, I've got you January 20th, 1975, and that was at 515 in Angola. Is that correct? I purchased an apartment in 2006 with the assistance of my elder sister, who was a real estate agent at the time. Since 2019, my nephew and his family have been renting this apartment. They expressed interest in buying it at that time, but were not financially prepared to do so. Although there was prior discussion in 2019 about selling the old price, after careful consideration, I decided not to set at that price due to my financial needs for home improvements. By investing on the side business I am developing, I've offered my nephew a 15 to 20% discount on the current market value, but this decision led to conflict with my sister and her family, who have since stopped talking to me, and they are unable to purchase at the discounted price. I have asked them to vacate by the end of the year to allow me to sell the property. Ooh. They argue the market is inflated, that I won't be able to sell at the quoted price. My plan is to start showing the apartment once it is vacated around October or November, aiming to sell by the end of the year at a fair market price. My question is, will I be able to sell my apartment for a fair price in the market? Okay, thank you. Well, so it's so my answer for you is kind of complex, and I'm going to try to break this down in a way that makes sense. So when I look at home and property, right? Home and family, this is your fourth house. Currently, like right now, let's put the transits up right now. What's happening is you're coming off of 2 years of eclipses in your fourth house. So that means spring of last year, spring of this year, you've had, solar eclipses in your fourth house, which means it's been kind of bringing up the drama in regards to action revolving around home and property, right? One was particularly close to your moon actually in April. So it was bringing up some kind of heated tension, having to squash issues with family members revolving around your home. And Chiron is there right now too, which means you're kind of feeling like emotionally kind of the brunt of other people's issues, and you're kind of being given a hard time for being more assertive in regards to your home and your property. You were born with the sun in the moon square. So the sun in the first house is like an Aries signature, even though you're a Capricorn, and it's at 29 degrees. So it's kind of assertive and very bold. And there is a side of you that's like really practical and wants to get things done. And then there's the side of you that, when people aren't kind of going along with things, you become very, direct. Aries moons are very direct. So with Chiron on your moon, it's bringing lots of emotional tension, and it's squaring your sun. And Pluto is on your sun as well. And Pluto deals with power, transformation, regeneration, feeling like you're going through a personal crisis. Pluto's coming back in a conjunction with your sun. The sun rules your 8th house of other people's money. And there's a Mercury retrograde there right now, which means you're going back and forth trying to figure out, what do I need to invest in this to get it ready? Are they going to, still pay me? Are they going to be consistent with the back and forth of the resources, because this represents other people's money or other people's kids? And this is all squaring Uranus. So there's a lot of moving parts here revolving around what you're investing in this and seeing it as an investment to be able to kind of bring in a profit. Profits are going to be more seen as a combination of the 2nd and the 8th house. And one thing that I'll tell you is that because profit is ruled by the sun and Pluto's on the sun, there is this really strong fixation with like, I have a goal, this is what I'm doing, this is what's going to happen. And as this is squaring Chiron and the moon, there can be friction with other people because they feel like they're kind of being, pushed out. I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but the square literally means being kind of shoved out of a situation. Saturn is in your 3rd house, communication with siblings, and it's on top of your Jupiter, which means there's a lot of back and forth where you're having to lay down the law, literally, revolving around being like, look, this is what I need you to move. And it creates a lot of miscommunication and issues revolving around that. And you can really see this hit like a peak, especially in September. The Mercury retrograde in itself can be people coming back to you, basically saying to you, I can't pay for this, we can't afford this. And with all of the oppositions and the squares, it feels kind of tense. A lot of this is complicated. It depends on where the location is, the astrology of where you're selling it, looking at the exact day and time of like when you purchased it. So it's not a very simple question, but what I can tell you is when it comes to recouping investments, right? Generally, that's something I see when we see a retrograde in the 8th house. So you have a Mercury retrograde there now. So this is about you going, well, I'm making these investments. Is it going to pay off? I need to see something positive going on with the Sun, Saturn, or Uranus. And to me, it looks like we're going to start to see the Sun trine Uranus in September, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're making money then. We're going to start to see Saturn in a square with Jupiter. So that means that it is possible, if they're not willing to work with you, that there could be some difficulties in communicating or dealing with a relative, which could require you to have to file documents or paperwork or have people served, and it can bring legal stuff. Obviously, I hope not, but that can happen. There can be some sense with the Mercury retrograde now of doing some research and making sure that everything you're doing is legally by the book, so that way you're preventing that. And then I would assume if you're going to see some money from real estate, more so likely when Saturn and Jupiter come out of the square. So that's not going to be until like next year. You'll also have a Mercury and a Venus retrograde conjunct Saturn, which means, you know, I don't know if you have had a confirmed confirmation with them or not as to whether or not they will move. But I feel like between Saturn and the square to Jupiter and the fact that there's going to be retrogrades here, I kind of feel inclined to tell you, you know, if they're willing to move, great. If you feel like there's going to be them dragging their feet or there's some resistance in regards to this because of their financial issues, you could have a situation on your hands where it is harder to get them out of the house. And that becomes obvious to you in September with the eclipse. And then you're having to work through this possibly up until, if not December of this year, spring of next. Probably the best time to put something on the market is going to be when Mars is in Cancer, which is about real estate. And it's coming into a trine with Saturn, which is the Lord of your second house. And that's going to be right around the beginning of October. So you're going to see this here. So I feel like, hey, October, you know, let's see, when is it trining Saturn? So it's going to trine Saturn from here. So about September 29th through the better part of about October 7th is a good time because it's going to be trining here and your Jupiter, right? It's also squaring the sun, which means it's a lot of responsibility and work to get that out there. But do I think that you'll be able to sell it? Depends on when you sell it. Because once Mars gets into Leo and it starts opposing Pluto, you're going to be engaged in somebody going back and forth about some kind of price negotiation or, you know, being like, I'll give you this and you give me that. The market could also change at the end of the year, depending on where you live. And it can be harder to recoup funds. So, you know, selling the house, I would say before maybe the second half of November would be ideal, or renting it, depending on what you want to do. You could bring in some money, especially with Venus coming into conjunction with Pluto. And it could be a really strong period for finances if you manage to sell. I'm hoping, you know, the first half of November, and you could be looking at, you know, having stuff paid out or, you know, having the money coming through right around the time that Venus is conjunct Pluto. So that could be right around the beginning of December. But anything from the beginning of December on in terms of selling is likely not going to go well. As much as you don't want to hear that, Mars retrograde in your 7th house opposed Pluto means there's going to be a back and forth that you're having with somebody and there could be some challenge. Well, Mars rules your family. So this is what I'm saying. You want to make sure that they're out, or they could be coming back saying, let's negotiate, or let's try to work something out, or will you work with us? And I would say, if you have another offer, you know, you have to decide whether or not you would sell to them. Now, let's say you put it up there, you can't sell it, you could rent it. Certainly a Mars retrograde in your 7th, you could rent if that's something you wanted to do, if you can't sell. And another opportunity then to sell would be when Mars goes retrograde over your Saturn. So that's going to be then about mid-February of 2025 through what appears to be March. And then you're going to have the retrograde, and that can be signing documents and things pertaining to selling a house. So basically, you know, you want to be trying to do this end of September through mid-October. Ideally, you're selling by mid-November. If you can't, you know, and if you either have to rent it tentatively or if you decide that you want to put it off market, bring it back in market as you're coming into that period in kind of February, March, those are the best times to sell it. I do think that things get slowed down when you have a retrograde in your 7th house. And because it's about property, it's saying slowing down, reevaluating, and coming up with a plan or renegotiating something. So if you're really adamant about getting a price, and you're like, I think I can get it, somebody tries to lowball you, you can be like, you know, here's what I'm willing to offer you, this or nothing, and then you can let them come back, right? Because they may come back and check it out. But those are going to be the best times for you to sell that. And just know you're going to be having a lot of power struggles with money with Pluto on your sun because it rules your 8th house of other people's resources. And you're going to hear them kind of, please, I don't have it, or there can be some manipulative stuff that can come up in regards to funding. I hope that's helpful for you. All right, so we are coming down to the wire here. We have Carla, Curtis, and who else? And was it Austin? Hey Carly, I'm gonna have to refund you because we cut readings off a while ago. All right, so let's look at Carla. Oh, that was Carla, sorry. Let's look at Curtis. What's up, Curtis? No worries. I'll send it right back to you. I'll catch you next week's tarot. In 2 weeks is gonna be astrology. All right, so Curtis says, I'm October 15th, 2001, 4:16 p.m. in Wichita. What does my chart say about the tendency to alcohol and addiction? Good question. Oops, sorry, I'm moving that on you. A couple different things. So let's look at your chart. I'm going to assume you mean more in a sense of like natally, but there can be some transit things that are happening here as well. So number one, you're in Aquarius rising, okay? So that means that doing things different, being unconventional, pushing the limits, rebelling against things is kind of in your nature. Your traditional ruler is Saturn, okay? And you've got Saturn that's placed in Gemini. So Saturn in the 4th house in Gemini can talk about difficulties with emotion, sometimes challenges with home, family dynamics, things revolving around communication and relationships to siblings that can kind of come up. And Saturn's in opposition to Pluto, so some power struggles and issues in regards to authority figures and a tendency to rebel. So that can kind of come up there. Your modern day ruler is Uranus, and Uranus is in Aquarius, and it is retrograde, right on the cusp of your ascendant, technically hiding in the 12th. So you're somebody who I would consider pretty Uranian, actually. Whenever Uranus is within a degree or two of the ascendant, you know, there's something a little edgy, a little different, you know, about them. And, you know, Uranus is at a 21. So it's just more about, well, what am I learning about 12th house things, about drugs, about alcohol, about seclusion, about mental health, all of these things. These are things that you kind of learn. And retrograde means it's something karmic. So it can also mean, especially the people born with, you know, some of the Saturn, Neptune, either in Capricorn and Aquarius. We saw this from like the mid-90s, you know, into the 2000s. You know, Uranus in the 12th house can sometimes feel like you're losing your mind, or it's a difficult thing kind of dealing with all of these energies that you kind of absorb, if you believe in that stuff, from the collective. And sometimes it can feel like it's too much, and, you know, there can be stress and anxiety that can happen with Uranus in an air sign in the 12th. And you got Neptune there as well. So it does mean that there is sometimes things are too much. I just want to kind of be free. I just want to get out of my body. I want to vibe, you know, whether that's listening to music or dealing with my emotions. Neptune kind of, it does deal with alcoholism, and it does sometimes deal with addiction, but you need to see aspects between Neptune and other things. So you have that. So it's more about freedom and liberation and, like, you know, being able to process your emotions. Generally, though, Saturn trine Uranus is like somebody who experiments, but they don't necessarily go over the top. Okay, I will say that. If you look at your sun also trines Uranus and Saturn. And you've got a lot of air signs and water houses. So even though you're all air, which is like, do you even sit still? Do you know, can you stay in one place for very long? Do you blow away? Even though you have all that air, which is very intellectual, communicative, it's social, they're in water houses. And these are heavy houses. Maybe you have heard me say this before to some of you guys on my channel, but I believe that houses trump signs. So you can have a ton of planets in Gemini, but if it's in the 8th house or the 4th house or the 12th house, you've been through some shit. Like, there is a lot of emotional changes, and there's been a lot of endings and beginnings, and like learning to release and let things go. And there's been a lot of like heavy emotional things you've had to deal with in your life. You're learning to communicate, express, intellectualize, you know, share with other people some of your experiences. So, you know, looking at Neptune, I don't think that Neptune is a good indicator of, oh, if you have squares to Neptune, it means you have a drinking problem. I don't personally believe that. But you do have your 6th house ruler, which is about habits, right? This is the moon. So the moon is emotionally influenced if it's, connected to the 6th house. Health and habits, both good and bad, are direct connections to your emotions. So I go, okay, where is this moon? Moon is in the 8th house of what can be about trauma. It can be about emotions and things that are toxic and stuff that are hidden and dealing with the shadow. So the moon is in the 8th house, which is a very challenging place to have it. It's kind of similar to a Scorpio moon. So it means that there's lots of fluctuation and changes for you in relationships. And it's in the 8th house. So with that change, right, there is a connection to Uranus that's like, I just want to forget about it. I want to let it go. And there's also a close conjunction to Mercury. So the moon conjunct Mercury, which is retrograde at 18, means that there can be some mental health challenges revolving around relationships, vulnerability, communication. And it has you reflect on your emotions, and it's easier for you to tap in sometimes to just letting go or checking out or, using than it is to being vulnerable. And this also means you could use it in other situations, for feeling like more comfortable being, around somebody, dating somebody, anything in terms of like intimacy that can come up as well. And when your Mercury is at an 18, pretty close to your 6th house ruler, that means, especially retrograde, that there's something that's needing to be healed or talked about. Like this is a chart that would respond very well to therapy. I think therapy is good for everybody, but if you have moon in the 8th house, the more that you learn about psychologically, the older you get, the more that you start to realize why you function the way that you function. And this is just all 8th house moons. And you start to kind of really process things very differently. So learning about the psychology of habits and addiction can be really helpful here. Anyway, so just the moon trine, kind of Neptune and Uranus is enough for it. You've also got the moon that is in a T-square with Jupiter, which is your whole sign 6th house, which can be overdoing it, especially with alcohol, and the impact that has on you emotionally, and then the fact that your moon squares Mars, which means this can bring issues with your liver. So if you're a drinker with Jupiter in opposition to Mars, there could be major liver inflammation and issues where you're having problems, like with your kidneys too, because Libra is the lower back and the kidneys. There could be blood sugar issues and things that can come up as you get older. So I would watch for that. And, I think that Jupiter's exaltation connected to your whole sign 6th house in opposition to Mars means that when you learn how to properly deal with anger, frustration, aggression, or you have an outlet or something you're really working on, you learn how to kind of diffuse some of this stuff. And to me, it looks like you would be somebody who would write or teach, or, you talk about philosophy around relationships and having lost yourself to relationships and the impact that it had on you and the toll that it took on you psychologically or on your health or your body. And it would inspire you to teach other people about stories of like overcoming challenges in relationships and being able to heal yourself. And that would be like the positive kind of connection of that. And do I see anything else? Well, your north and your south node are significant because they're at 29 degrees. And I can see with your 29 degree, which is critical, south node ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter's in the 6th, it is basically saying that you're overcoming a sense of not having taken responsibility for health or habits in a previous life. And, South Node Chiron, that's a difficult placement to have. I have a couple clients from 2001 who have that placement because it's about overcoming where you have felt victimized or mistreated or abused or identify so much with having to heal yourself or having chronic health-related issues in past lives that in this lifetime, your North Node, which is in Gemini, which is more about writing, teaching, kind of sharing, traveling, communicating, is ruled by Mercury. And if you notice what I said about how Mercury is conjunct your sun in the 8th house and the moon, that you would be able to teach or talk to people about overcoming situations, and that part of your creative process might be teaching children, writing music, writing books, things that could allow you to be able to kind of really transmute some of the issues that you've had with pain, right? And tap into a more creative, kind of fulfilling form of self-expression. But, anybody who's got Saturn or the North Node in the 5th house, they've had some broken hearts. They've
had some challenges in relationships, and that definitely kind of, definitely checks the self-esteem or the confidence when it comes to the love department. But you got to lead into those trines with the North Node and Saturn to your planets in the 8th house. There's a lot of depth there and a lot of opportunity for you to be able to kind of teach and inspire other people to have healthier habits and relationships in the future. So very interesting chart you have there, dude. Seriously, go and talk to an astrologer who knows what they're doing. Go and talk to somebody who does like evolutionary stuff, because the South Node, Chiron, Pluto in the same sign is very significant, and it makes your Jupiter all that much more emphasized, which is why you may have, some challenges revolving around addiction stuff. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Curtis. Let me know. And we have got Austin. What's up, Austin? Let me see if I've got your chart here. All right, so let's pull you up. You're a different Austin, so got a couple of you guys. Okay. June 6th, 94, 747. And that is PM. Make sure that's right. June 6th, 94. Okay. So we're looking at two people. Okay, you mentioned in a previous reading, watch out for August, December, and spring of next year. What's in store for me? Okay, so am I looking at two people? Who's who? So Paris is the other person? Okay, so that's going to be December 22nd, 1999. And 1:48 a.m. Correct. Okay. Got it. All right. So I've got Austin and I've got you. So you have specific questions about the synastry, or you just want to know more about the timing of what's coming? So you're Sag rising. You've got Jupiter going through your 7th with Mars. This is why I kind of gave you the heads up about August, because of the squares to Saturn. So there could definitely be some growing pains. I think Jupiter and Saturn in square is about growing pains. You know, Saturn is showing us like where we're either not doing enough or we're holding back. And then Jupiter's like, no, we're going to expand. So for a Sag rising chart like this, it's about being like relationship growth and expansion. So you're getting out of the past and you're not stuck there, or you're not staying at home, or it's inspiring you to be more open when it comes to your home base or your heart, or even like meeting your family. Definitely, you know, the last couple of days seems very significant. So, you know, Mars and Jupiter on your sun looks like there's been lots of lessons about, you know, relationships and like what you believe in and where you're going with that stuff. So that's big. Let's see what else. And then we've got this retrograde that's been in the 9th. That's not doing too much. We've got Uranus that's now off your South Node. That's good. So that's stabilizing. Now I'm looking at Uranus in opposition to your Pluto. So that's big changes psychologically and behind the scenes revolving around fear and control. And Uranus here is changing up or shaking up your health or your daily routine. So that's still happening. Tail kind of moments of your Saturn return. So, you know, now you're in integration phase. You're going to see this a lot in October, November. And then Saturn will go direct conjuncture Saturn, which is going to be in November, and it's going to move forward. And then you'll see another Saturn-Jupiter square in December. So that can represent a holding pattern where you're like, no, I still want to have my own space, or I don't know if I want to live with somebody, or I don't want to give up where I've been living, or, you know, I'm still dealing with home or family stuff, before you can really see that there can be some kind of significant growth that will come, especially in like the spring of 2025. So that seems to be like a theme. Now, in terms of the other person, interesting connection here. Mercury and Pluto on your ascendant. Do you feel like they read your mind? Sun in the first house. So this is kind of like a Velcro relationship. Even for somebody who's got a lot of Sag and Scorpio in their chart, you know, the sun in the first house, I think is awesome. It's not the same sign, but it's definitely like a sense of somebody who's kind of mirroring and helping you go in the direction of where you're going, which I think is great. One of my old astrology teachers always told me, like, having sun in the first house or sun in the first house sign the same is really helpful in helping you evolve into, you know, what you came here to do. Intense is the word. Pluto on the ascendant is intense. It can be, there's a lot of chemistry, a lot of attraction, but sometimes there can be some challenges revolving around communication and exchange. Obviously, this all opposes your sun. So together, you know, there is this Pluto and Mercury in opposition to your sun, which does feel intense. You know, they're in alignment with the kind of saggy persona of your ascendant, which is funny because they have the moon in your sign. So it means that you guys really do kind of represent the divine masculine and feminine. This person gets you out of your comfort zone. That's what I will tell you with those placements on your ascendant. And the Venus is right on your point of fortune, right? It's within a degree, really close to the North Node. Wow. North Node on your vertex. Wow. Is this a new person that's come in since the last time I saw you? I don't know if I remember looking at this chart, because this is like, holy cow, this person really holds you accountable for your ascendant and your descendant. They make you do both. And you guys have Venus trine Venus. And you've got Mars square Venus, which I think is actually kind of good. That's a little bit of friction. Mars square Venus square the moon. Mars square the moon can definitely be somebody who kind of pushes you out of your comfort zone. Okay, so you've been dating since May. So the only challenge, and this is me like really nitpicking here, okay, because I love like the Venus Saturn trine. I like the Venus Mars square. I like all the ascendant stuff. The only thing that I feel like is challenging is the fact that their Mercury opposes your sun, or your Mercury opposes their sun. That can be a little tricky, because even though you have like all this Gemini and like this Scorpio and this Sag, that's very soft-spoken, sensitive, you know, like kind-hearted. And with the Capricorn sun and the Mercury and the Pluto in Sag, they can be a bit of like a ball buster, right? In my opinion. Yeah, it's tough finding ways to communicate. And that's because you're going to see much more of all, like, look at this, like, you know, all this Aquarius, you know, all this Sag. I mean, it's just like very direct. And when you have Mercury in opposition to the sun, it just means that, you know, their ego and the way that you communicate, there's going to be some stuff that can kind of come up. But this is me nitpicking. One other thing I would say is Saturn and Mars in conjunction. That can definitely mean that there are some challenges in regards to, you know, like connection, motivation. Sometimes it can be physical. Sometimes it can be some sexual challenges. You still haven't had, or they still haven't had their Saturn return yet. So a lot of this can represent where your drive is in the 5th house, you know, passion, creativity, pleasure, playtime. You know, if it is 6th house, it's going to be about, you know, health and things revolving around your routine and your habits. They could limit that. So Saturn-Mars contacts can be a little tricky. And at least there's an outlet. So see how your Mars trines their sun, there's an outlet for it. So, you know, it's not terrible, but that definitely is kind of difficult, because it can definitely hurt a little bit when you know, have somebody Saturn in your 5th house. You can sometimes feel like kind of rejected sometimes, or that they can be a little harsh. And then they're a Libra rising. They've got the Gemini moon, Saturn in the 7th. So your Mars is their Saturn. You may end up being their Saturn return, just full disclosure, because that's a house ruled by Mars and there's a Mars-Saturn conjunction. What is the deal with this person's upbringing? Neptune, Uranus, South Node, Mars. Wow, that looks colorful. They move around a lot. Their parents separate. Like, what's so weird and unusual about their upbringing? And Venus in the first house. Yeah, they had it tough. Well, they learned how to fight. Venus square Uranus. They can be, I mean, they don't intend on it, but they can be kind of prickly sometimes. Yeah, I can see that. With Venus square. So, Venus in opposition to Saturn, this person can have this perspective that's like, relationships don't work, everybody leaves, and when there's problems, there can be a tendency to be like, kind of, they get their guard up a little bit. So part of your Mars in opposition to your Venus is like, when they get like that and they kind of push you away, you have to be like, no, come back. Nope, that's not going to work. That's the easy way out. That's something you might have to say. She also has an identical twin. Interesting. So I like your Jupiter in the first. I like your Juno on the ascendant. I do like your Mars in the 7th, even though that can be a little tricky. I think it can be good because it can be encouraging them to do their Saturn work. This is super karmic with all of your Gemini and your moon and all that stuff in the 8th house. It's kind of like, they can't really hide. And obviously the oppositions are in the 2nd and 8th house, which can be more financial. It can also be more your philosophy revolving around money and resources. And the North Node Pluto in the 2nd house means that, and the Mars in the 7th house. So who's the one that's more kind of attached and possessive of the other person? Somebody is. I don't know who it is, but with Mars being in the 7th conjunct Saturn and then North Node Pluto in the 2nd, maybe it's them because they have Venus in Scorpio. I don't know. I think I may be at this point. Okay, because somebody's going to be a little bit more fixated and fixated on the other person. Maybe because you have your North Node and your Pluto in the 2nd. It's like, that's mine. But they like that, if they have all those planets in the 2nd house. I would just say that, you have to go into this knowing that there is a potential, and even though this is down the road, you could end up being the Saturn return person because Saturn's at a 10, so it's somebody who's older. It's in Taurus, so it's going to represent somebody who's got planets around there or somebody who's got planets like in Capricorn, which you do. And Saturn in the 5th house where there's going to be eclipses there is definitely the next 2 years going to be a lot about like things getting real in a romantic relationship. But I don't think it's a bad combination. You definitely came in to teach them something. I'm not going to say that there couldn't be something that could happen for you, but you came in to teach them something. And I think the Mercury Pluto is really interesting because it's going to be somebody who you can have straight, direct conversations with. Even though they can be intense, it's just direct. And a lot of it is going to be them saying things that are already kind of like on your mind, And I like your Jupiter on the cusp of their 5th house. Or their Jupiter on the cusp of your 5th house too. That's good for a romantic connection. Square your Venus also. I feel like now in December are the times to watch. Because this can be like, can this evolve into something that can actually be like a bigger thing down the road? Could this be something that could eventually merge into being like, oh, could we have a life together? In your chart, yes, Scorpio 18 degrees rising, Jupiter moon. So maybe you guys have already started talking about these things even though it hasn't happened yet. The North Node is on your Saturn right now and your Mars, so it looks like it's about making time, keeping the romance alive, seeing one another. And there's an eclipse coming on your sun in mid-September. Yeah, kids, because you're going to have an eclipse right here. It's right conjunct your composite 5th house sun. So that could be a pregnancy. It's squaring Jupiter in the 8th. That's the real merger. And if not, then when Saturn hits that degree, right around here, spring of 2025, that could definitely be a thing, for sure. Saturn's going to come into conjunction with your sun and also your South Node. I mean, hello? I think Jupiter conjunct the moon is really saying it's thinking about more, okay, you know, have we dealt with all of our past traumas and relationships? Are we at a point where we would want that in the future? You know, could we see ourselves doing that? If so, you know, what does that look like? Where do we live? There's like a lot of planning if that's something you guys want to do. But it's coming up because the North Node's activating your 5th house. And Saturn's going to oppose your guys' Venus, which means you guys have to figure out your home and other situations and, you know, financial related things. And I think that's what a lot of the retrogrades are going to be about. Is if that's something you do, I'd be very careful. Don't mess around with the eclipse in September and also in the spring. Unless you're trying to have a kid, the activations in this chart are pretty loud. That's very, very, very possible, especially with Jupiter on the moon. So it's talking about what you would want to get in order before you guys would decide to do that. And obviously Pluto's conjunct your Jupiter. So this can be about good opportunities and conversations talking about growth in the future with the relationship. Watch for Saturn in opposition to your Venus. That's the one thing, is that Saturn is still going to oppose Venus. So that's going to be in February, and then it's going to break. And then things can get, I think, a little bit easier with this chart, especially with, you know, Saturn starting to trine Pluto. And eventually it'll come into a trine with Jupiter, too, in 2026. So that can actually be a really interesting growth period for the two of you. Cool astrology. I hope that was helpful. Keep me updated. I want my Saturn return to be over so badly. I know. It's yeah, I know what that's like. But then when you get to the other side of it, you're like, you'll look back in like a year and you'll be like, okay, it wasn't that bad. And then, you know, then you'll do it again in 28, 29 years, right? Anyway, thank you, Austin. I hope that's helpful. I hope you guys enjoyed this, even though it was like a hot mess with Mercury playing pranks on me. So I'm sure we'll get lots of fun comments from that. Please give me a thumbs up if you guys like this channel. Make sure you're subscribed. I'm going to be back on Sunday. We're going to talk all about Jupiter's first Saturn, the grand finale, and we have a holy cow full moon in Aquarius on the 19th. So check out that video because it is one of the crazier ones this year. You want to see more about me or my work or my courses because I teach astrology, click the links in the description below. Head over to beyondtheveiledtarot.com. Sign up for my newsletter. I will not spam you. I will just send you emails when we have new webinars coming out because I have some stuff I'm going to do in the next month for the eclipses. And don't forget to check out the video on Sunday, and we'll be back next week doing tarot. Thanks for hanging out with me. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and you guys take care.